All right, folks. Good evening. Give everybody a chance to get to their seat. All right. I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Mayor and Council for May 9th, 2023. I'm going to have the invocation by Pastor Barry Thompson, Pastor of Care, Prayer and Connections at Midway Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance with Officer Austin Massey. So if I could get everyone to please rise. Pastor, you'll come up there.
Gracious Lord, we come and we gather in this room, and decisions are going to be discussed and made. And Father, we've had people doing that in our country from the very beginning. And people have sought your guidance, oh Lord Jesus, as this country was formed, as it has grown and expanded. Wise people have continued to seek your guidance. And we ask for that tonight, that the people in this room, those who serve, those who are here as citizens with questions, Lord, that you will just be with everybody and let them realize you're here. You bring a spirit of peace, and you can help us make wise decisions for today that will affect our community in the future. So we ask your guidance, Lord. You know what's coming. We don't know what's coming, and we appreciate your guidance, Lord Jesus. In your most holy name, amen.
Amen. All right, officer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. You all may be seated. Hang on just a second, officer and pastor. I want to say a few words. I want to introduce you all. Dr. Barry Thompson was kind enough to stand in tonight on short notice, so I don't have a whole lot of background for him here, but I'll say that he is from Lithia Springs in Douglas County, and he is a partner in marriage and ministry with Kay Thompson. He has an extensive education background, and sir, I want to thank you for being here again tonight. Thank you. If you all give him a round of applause, please. And Officer Austin Massey began working for the Villa Rica Police Department in April of 2021. Upon graduation from the Law Enforcement Academy, Officer Massey was assigned as a night shift patrol officer, where he enjoys placing an emphasis on enforcing driving under the influence laws and street-level narcotics investigations. Due to his commitment to enforcing DUI laws, Officer Massey qualified for a bronze-level award from the Mothers Against Drunk Driving Association for his efforts in 2022. Thank you for being here. Please give him a round of applause. Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to move on to the adoption of the agenda, and I am not aware of any modifications. If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Excuse me a second. Ms. Clerk,
Second.
say it again. What item is it? Okay, yeah, I do need to make a modification to the agenda. Thank you. No, that's okay. Just when you hold something up and point to it, I don't know exactly what it is. I'm getting old and I can't see. All right, so let me get to the governing body. So under tab A, let's add a tab A3. And here we will place the item which would be the framework for Eastside TAD agreement with school district. That's a long name, but we will do that.
So that's 8-3.
All right, any other modifications anybody's aware of? Okay, if there are none, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Second. Make the motion.
I have a motion from Ms. Marchman to adopt the agenda as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Carter. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. All right, we are going to move on to public comment. When you came in today, there was a sign-up sheet in the lobby, and I have quite a list here. So I will go through this list, and I will do all of these names, and then if there are still folks who did not sign up, I will give you an opportunity at the end. Let me say, though, tonight I have a number of public hearings, and at every public hearing, there will be an opportunity to speak on the particular item. which means you may not have needed to sign up when you came in the door. So if I call your name and you're here for a public hearing, as opposed to just public comments, just let me know that and we'll skip you and move on. All right.
Those public hearings are mostly zoning matters also. So
Okay. That's right, they're zoning, so if you're here for a zoning public hearing, you may have signed up here inadvertently, but either way, you can do both if you choose to. All right, Doug Lang.
Mr. Mayor, I'll hold my comments till public hearing.
Thank you, sir. All right, it looks like Sharon Burke. Yes, ma'am. Also, you would like to wait for a public hearing? Okay. Mike Lockridge. Yes, sir. Public hearing? Okay. Aaron Buber? Yes, sir. You'll hold as well? Okay. Charlotte Evans?
I have something that's not on the agenda.
Well, then you should come up right now. Give us your name and address for the record, and we will give you 3 minutes.
It's Charlotte
Go
Evans.
ahead and pull the mic down, because it's not just the folks in the room, it's the people at home.
Okay.
All right.
Charlotte Evans, 640 Clearview Street in Villa Rica.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm here to address the high school traffic that's on our side streets. Every day, morning and afternoon, the children leave out from the back parking lot, and they believe that South Street, Meadowlark Drive, and Clearview Street are the Indy 500. There's always the chance for an accident. There's a lot of elderly people and young families on this road, along with pets. And all we're asking is, honestly, we would like speed bumps there, on those 3 side streets and even on Rocky Branch, because just to deter, because it's not just our safety as residents and constituents here, it's also the safety of these children that are leaving out from school, and they're kids.
Sure.
You know, they want to have fun. They want to show off their new car that they got, you know, their Mustang or Camaro, and we're just concerned altogether because, you know, what's to say, you know, our house is not 100 feet away from the road, and one of these kids loses control, and next thing you know, they're in our house, and they're severely injured. We're in a brick house, so we might not be injured, but, you know, it's just a safety. And, you know, they come through, they throw trash out in our yards that we have to pick up. They flip my husband off when they come down the street, because we will tell them to slow down, you know, just because we've got, you know, my next door neighbor I got a next door neighbor is 97. She still gets out and about and walks around. What's to say her walker, she forgets to hit the brakes. And she goes out in the street as the car's coming up, and they're going, even at 25, it's hard to stop when something that sudden comes out. But these children are going 45, 50, 60 miles an hour in some cases, up and down these streets, back and forth, children in the back beds of trucks while they're doing that. There's 3 or 4 teenagers in the bed of a truck zooming down the street and going to the front of the high school and then coming right back. All of them standing up, you know, or holding on to the top rails of a SUV even. And it's terrifying as a parent, because I don't want my kid to be out there doing this and take their lives, their friends' lives, or somebody else's on that street, or anywhere for that fact. And that's kind of, you know, where we're at with it, because, you know, there's not a whole lot of respect, and honestly, most of the residents on Clearview Street can't make it because they're, you know, they have to get, you know, their family members to bring them out here and everything else because they're elderly. So that's pretty much where I'm at with it. But we would like to really get speed bumps, something, just to kind of help it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so, you know, I didn't say this before, so I want to make sure I say this, because I don't want anybody to feel disrespected. During the public comments, these are your 3 minutes. We don't really engage back and forth, but we hear them, and we'll follow up with you or take whatever action we think can be helpful in that. But it's not to be disrespectful. This is your 3 minutes, and we try to move it along so that everybody can get an opportunity to get in. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. All right, Sebastian Wilson. Okay. Selena Miahori? Mianeri, all right. You wait as well? This is almost brutal for me because I have no idea. All right, gotcha. We have another one of those silent letters here. Connie, is it Broom? Want to come up? Oh, okay. Well, come on up. Well, let's wait till you get up here in that microphone there. Give us your name and address for the record, and we will give you 3 minutes.
I get nervous and I'm OCD.
Oh, don't even worry about it. Go ahead.
619 South Street. I'm on the side, the closest, right behind Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
And so I went to the city court to try to find out what was coming in there. My husband and I are renters, but we rent a great house for $2,000 a month. And I went to all my neighbors going, these kids need to slow down. I have 2 dogs and a cat, but I have 1.5 acres and 2 fences, and they live in the house. But they just, and the mufflers, my husband has a Chevy, a Flowmaster. We understand it. But just popping and stuff, my dogs are scared like it's 4th of July. And they go so fast. And we don't like it. So before I signed, the lease agreement, because we didn't buy the house this next year, I gotta hurry, I went to all the neighbors first to find out if we could slow this people down. Our dogs would never get out of the cage, but anything could happen. The fence. And we're just sad because it's so loud, and they're fast, very fast. And coming back, my husband even saw a couple fights after a football game over in that parking lot where the sheriff's department used to be, and saw people were beating each other up, the police. I like that Villa Rica sits right over there by our house, because we're the second house on the right behind the pawn shop in Jefferson's, and we have 1.5 acres. But now I know Longhorn's coming in there, and I'm happy, not a hotel or a motel, no offense. So we're here to say, can you slow these people down? And don't open the back by Hardee's, please. That's all I have to say.
Some of that stuff is going to be good, and
Thank
some
you,
of it's
sir.
not going to be good. Thank you. All right. Let's say Dennis and Sherry Lingle. You're going to wait? All right. Thank you. Okay, so I've reached the end of the list. Is there anybody here, though, who wanted to give public comment and did not sign up? Okay. I'll close the public comments, and we will move on to the council updates. I'm going to take this opportunity. We got a big crowd here, so there's some things I want to talk about. First, I want to acknowledge that we lost the Carroll County Fire Marshal this past weekend, and so I have some remarks here. He will certainly be missed. Tonight, I want to say something about Nick Turner, Fire Marshal for Carroll County Fire Rescue, and a good friend to many people, including the entire emergency response community. Some of you who were downtown may have heard and seen a long procession of emergency vehicles with their sirens on and lights flashing through town yesterday. This was in honor of Nick, who passed away on May 5th. He began his employment with the County Fire Department in 2008. He spent most of his time assigned to Station 9 here in Villa Rica, which we all know is the busiest of the county fire stations. Nick also served as a paramedic, and for a time he worked for West Georgia Ambulance Service, which was founded by native son Steve Adams. In 2019, Nick was promoted to the rank of Fire Marshal, where he oversaw fire investigations, supervised fire safety inspections, and worked tirelessly to promote fire and life safety. Nick was truly a remarkable man who touched many lives, and we are all keeping his family in our thoughts. The family will be receiving friends Thursday, May 11th at the J. Collins Funeral Home here in Villa Rica from 4 to 8 p.m. The funeral will be at 1 p.m. on Friday at Midway Church. And if you attend, the family encourages you to wear something representing the fire department, the University of Georgia, or Villa Rica. I also wanted to touch on a few other issues. I know that you all have noticed the railroad. The crossings have been being blocked more lately. This is due to the trains. The trains have become shorter now, which is causing more congestion on the line. What we have done here is reached out to the railroad, to our liaison there, and asked them that when these trains have to be parked, if they could break them apart and split them over the crossings. That there's some safety concerns with that. There's manpower concerns with that. So I don't know that that's going to happen, but we've at least asked for that. I wanted to make you aware of that. We also do not have a council meeting in June. That month we have the municipal convention in Savannah, and it's also a month when a number of staff members and council members and various folks have vacation, and we wanted to give that opportunity for folks to do that. So to that end, there's several things that'll be going on in the intervening weeks. So I wanted to update you on some of the things going on. On Thursday of this week, we'll be cutting the ribbon at the Gold Dust Park Splash Pad. That ceremony will start at 11:30 a.m., and the splash pad will open this Memorial Day weekend. That's at Gold Dust Park. On Friday, Reel at the Mill will feature Disney Pixar's Lightyear at the amphitheater. This free film will start as soon as it gets dark, and you can buy popcorn, candy, and drinks there. That's right here at the Mill Amphitheater. Rise and Shine will meet at 8:15 a.m. on May 17th at their new location over at the Olive Tree. The Golden City Cruisers will have their next cruise in on May 20th at the Mill Amphitheater. If you've never been to one and you love classic cars or just cars in general, that's the place to be. Our community farmers market is underway. Just come to the Mill on Mondays between 4 to 7 to find the best locally grown produce. Looking ahead, the first of our free concert series will take place on June 3rd. Hollywood Nights, a Bob Seger tribute band, will be the headline act. Their website says they try to recreate everything about Seger and his music down to the smallest detail. The annual Thomas A. Dorsey Birthplace and Heritage Festival will take place June 23 through 24. This is a great event that blends the three musical genres for which Dorsey was known. And you should start making your plans now for the 17th annual fireworks display, which will take place at the V-Plex on July 3rd. This event is fast becoming the best Independence Day fireworks show west of Atlanta. This year, the main entertainment will be the Platinum Band, who perform dance hits from all genres of music, including hits from the 80s, the 90s, hip-hop, R&B, funk, and disco. Some of those I listen to, and some of them I don't even know what they are. So, now, I am going to give council members an opportunity to give updates. Is there anybody who would like to be recognized? Ms. McPherson.
Real quick, I want to mention the farmers market again. I did get a chance to stop in yesterday. I had missed the first week, and there is just a host of variety of things, along with a food truck, snow cone truck. I mean, there's fresh meats. The produce is limited at this point, but more of that will be coming in as we get further along. The other thing I want to mention is I want to thank the council in majority for voting down my gifted concert to the city. Now, that may sound odd for me to thank people for voting against something that I wanted, but this is what happened. Instead of me doing the concert and it just being an entertainment event, it has now been taken on by the Lions Club, who will do it as a fundraising event to do the charity work that they cannot do with the fundraiser they used to do. It's just not available to do that anymore. So those clubs that both do a number of things in the community to help people and help the blind and that sort of thing. So instead of just fun, it'll now be used and be able to help a number of individuals. And thank you, Councilman Momtahan, for being a little bit creative and thinking that there was a way we could do that. Because I didn't see it at first, but it's working out better than planned.
Okay, anybody else? All right, seeing none, I will close the council updates. And I'll move on to the consent agenda. So the consent agenda is a single item that encompasses all things the city council would normally approve with little comment. Each of these items were discussed at the council work session this afternoon, and it was the unanimous consensus of the governing body to place the following items on the consent agenda. I'm going to go through the consent agenda, and after I do that, I'll ask if there are any objections, and if there are none, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the consent agenda. Consent number 1, appointment of Claudia Best for the Carroll County Library Advisory Board. Consent number 2, National Public Works Week proclamation. Consent number 3, setting date for accepting applications for package stores. Consent number 4, ballot for GMA's District 4 officers. Consent number 5, Powell Park flooring replacement. Consent number 6, appointment of Candy Wilson and Landon Prather to the Main Street Advisory Board. Consent number 7, community grant application, Thomas A. Dorsey Birthplace and Gospel Heritage Festival, Inc. Consent number 8, community grant application, Alzheimer's Group of Carroll County. Consent number 9, community grant application, Billerica Lions Club. Consent number 10, Motorola portable radios. Consent number 11, solid waste services operational and financial assessment. Consent number 12, Cowens Lake improvements change order number 1. Consent number 13, dam repair development report. Consent number 14, purchase of distribution isolation valves. Consent number 15, water plant basin repair. Consent number 16, West Plant supervisory control and data acquisition upgrade. Consent number 17, to approve the updated customer sanitation rates due to GFL's 5.2% rate increase based on the Consumer Price Index for all urban customers. Consent number 18, fiscal year 23 budget amendments, numbers 154 through 155. Consent number 19, execution of the GDOT project framework agreement, downtown streetscape project. Consent number 20, grant application for LMIG funds. Consent number 21, utility aid for Connors Road roundabout. Consent number 22, waste pit easement agreement. And consent number 23, food truck permit for the Highway Cafe. Are there any objections to any of these items? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Carter to adopt the consent agenda, a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Okay, we're going to move on to ceremonial presentations. I think there's a couple of these folks who will not be here, so we'll skip those. First up, we want to recognize Charlene Clark for 5 years of service with the Utilities Department. Is Charlene here? Come on up here, Charlene. Who's going to do this? John? Come on up here, John. It's Charlene. Come on up here, John Bain. Oh, my goodness. John's got fans. Give him a handheld mic.
Thank you. So 5 years in the Utilities Department is quite an accomplishment. I know Charlene's seen a lot of transitions in those 5 years. Having only been here for a couple of those, I can imagine how many you've gone through. But Charlene's always responded positively to all the changes that we've made. She has patiently answered what must have seemed like about 5,000 questions from me when I came aboard. She supports all 3 departments on a daily basis. She helps Aaron out, she helps Jason out, helps Eric out constantly. I know they're very appreciative of that. She brings a high level of professionalism to the department, which is well needed, and we appreciate that. But most importantly, Charlene, I just want to say thank you, because it has been, especially these last few months, having conversations with you. It's been a joy getting to know you, and I'm looking forward to the next 5 years together.
Wonderful. Charlene, would you like to say anything? Give her that microphone.
Hold on before you start. How many people are there now that were there when you got hired at the West Plant?
2.
About outlasted all of them.
I have.
Not all the departments are like that.
All right, go ahead.
Absolutely. Yes, I am so thrilled to be a part of the Utilities Department. And before John was Pete, and John came right in. I mean, he took over. He's very knowledgeable. He is the type person that he's a leader. He has the knowledge, the education, and the personality that actually keeps the departments together. And you can tell by the changes that have been made. John is such a wonderful person. He has great personality, and I enjoy talking to him. He has a lot of information. He has a lot in the head, and I enjoy him so much. And all of the team members, Eric and Aaron and Jason, it's all good. So I think that I'm in a really good place, and I enjoy the people that I work with.
Wonderful. I don't know if this was more about you or more about her, John. All right, let's get a picture. All right, thank you. Give her a... All right, next up, Sydney Augustus, 5 years of service with the Villa Rica Public Library. Come on up here. I was looking for Rachel. I don't see Rachel. She's at Disney. How can that be more fun than doing this?
Oh. So Dr. Rachel Lynn is the library manager. She couldn't be here tonight. She's in Disney, or at Disney. So I'm going to speak on her behalf. Sydney started with the city in 2018 part-time at the library. In 2021, went to full-time. But Rachel did write something about you, and I thought it was too good not to read. Sydney is an incredible asset to the Villa Rica Public Library and the community it serves. Her intelligence is only matched by her tenacity, which makes her an incredible problem solver ready to take on any challenge we encounter. She is a fantastic digital marketing specialist, as she is a thoughtful communicator who can master new technologies. More than that, Sydney is our rock. She supports every one of her peers with equal care, and she is the first person to step in when one of us needs a hand. Sydney is the best of Villa Rica, and we're lucky to have her. So congratulations on 5 years.
Y'all slide together. Get close like you know each other. All right, give her another hand. All right, next up, recognition of Mackenzie O'Bannon for 5 years of service with the Villa Rica Police Department. Come on up here.
So Mackenzie has been with us for 5 years. Feels like longer because she's done so much for the department. She's stepped up in so many different ways. Mackenzie she's worked patrol for a while. She's trained people as an FTO and has done an amazing job in both of those. She has recently been sent into Criminal Investigations Division for a temporary assignment because we had one guy that had surgery, and she's stepped into that. Seems to be enjoying it, loves it, looks sharp. I mean, just professional, really has done a great job in there. She also has 2 children, Charlie and Presley, and is married, and he's okay. But she's amazing. She's amazing. And we appreciate what she does for us, and we want to congratulate her on 5 years.
Here you go. Sorry about that. Thank you. All right. Recognition of Jeffrey Shelton for 5 years of service with the Villa Rica Police Department. Come on up here.
Jeff is a part-time employee with us. Jeff came over to us. He'd worked in other agencies, wanted to come on part-time, work court for us, also special events. So he's usually there at the fireworks. He's usually there at the Gold Rush and all that. But he helps us tremendously in court because he's a steady hand, and we know he's going to be here. We know he's got it in tow. We don't have to come check on it. We know it's going to get done, and so we really appreciate the job that he's done for us. We hope we get him several more years to keep working with us. But he also, I know, works Douglasville and other agencies, but he says ours is the best. He tells me that. So we're thrilled to have him, keep him here, so we appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Okay, This is something that I haven't been looking forward to and didn't know that I would be doing. I'm going to be. Is this correct? You sure? 100% sure? Renee, is that a yes? Okay. So we are going to recognize Charlie Davis, who will be retiring from the city of Villa Rica. So Tom, give him a hand, and Charlie, come on up.
I told him I was a no vote. That's a no vote from me. Hate to lose you.
Okay. So it seems like we just did this, when was it, 20 years? 2 months ago, okay. So Charlie just celebrated 20 years with us. He is finally going to do what he's been threatening to do for 6 months or a year or longer. Something about the recliner and the shed, work shed, and whatever. So this is what I'm going to promise you. I'm going to have somebody come by from code enforcement and check on you. Okay, make sure the grass is cut, no extra cars in the driveway, okay? Okay, we'll do it, man. Get PD to go escort, okay? So Charlie he's done a lot of things here and worked for a lot of people, a lot of city managers, a lot of managers. What he's done for me is expedite a lot of purchases. So on top of his job, he's done a lot of projects for me over the years. Finding things, getting rid of things. He's the person that deals with all of our stuff that goes out the door when we surplus it. But the main thing that has done for me is it's given me somebody I can depend on. And I've been able to depend on Charlie the whole time he's been here. Even when he worked in other departments, I knew that he was going to do whatever he got asked to do. And so I've been using him in that capacity the whole time, and he's done great. So we're going to miss you. I don't know what we're going to do. We may have to bring you a work phone and let you do some ordering from the recliner. I'm not sure how that's going to work. But anyway, y'all need to give Charlie a hand because he's done a great job here for 20 years.
I will. I'll act like I like you. You need to hurry up. This is the closest Tom has stood to me in a long time. Thank you so much. You want to say something, Charlie? Let me get you a mic. Yeah.
Tell him how much fun it's been.
There you go. Make sure you're talking there. And then let Renee talk too.
Well, when I started here, it was in a two-car garage down here. This room was the police department. And
The wall was falling in. The cinder block wall.
which wall?
The side wall on the street was actually falling in.
But it was a small department, and everybody was still struggling then. We're still struggling a little bit, but boy, it's getting a whole lot better, thanks to y'all. And with Tom's leadership, it's been the best it's been in all of those years. I appreciate it.
Wow.
But this is, it was a hard decision to make, but I just felt like y'all gonna be in some good hands with Hal. And I'm kind of winding myself down. I've closed my personal automotive shop I've had here in town for 16 years. 6 months ago. COVID kind of helped out with that. I'm ready to wind this down too. It's time for me to go home and relax a little bit. But I appreciate the opportunities I've had here. Worked with a lot of good people here. Thank you.
Well, here's what I knew. She was going to talk whether I said she could talk or not. So, because I learned that from you,
And I
that
didn't
she,
sign up for public comment.
you did not sign up. All right, I'm going to give you a minute though.
Okay.
30 seconds.
All
No,
I'm gonna
just
say is
kidding.
just a funny joke. This is
All
gonna
right, go
date-
ahead.
This is gonna date everybody. But if y'all remember the first airport movie where there was a guy called Petroni that they called for any kind of emergency or anything that happened. I told Charlie, I said, you are Tom's Petroni.
Well, you knew it. Thank you, Charlie. Thank y'all. No, nobody has to stay. Anybody who is already got your recognition, you don't want to stay for the whole thing, you don't have to. Okay, let's move on to the governing body, the approval of the minutes from April the 11th, 2023. You've had an opportunity to review those. Are there any modifications? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the...
Mayor,
Yes,
hi.
somebody does have something.
Well, I just wanted to make sure, I was double checking something here real quick. The minutes that are in are for the month of March. They're not the April minutes.
All right, well, let's double check that.
It says April 11th, but it actually is from March. Of course, I'm looking at the other screen. Maybe it's different there.
Yeah, let's do that. So I'll entertain a motion to table the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Montahan to table the approval of the minutes from April the 11th, 2023 to the July regular meeting. And I have a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. We'll table that to July. Okay, let's move on to A2, the second reading of the Home Rule Ordinance providing for board and commission terms. Mr. Mecklin.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is a proposed change to our charter, which will establish set terms for all members of authorities, commissions, and boards, with the exception of the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is covered under a separate ordinance. And the intent is to have every term of office expire on December 31st of the end of that term. We have checked, and this has not been published, so it does need to be tabled for a final vote until the July meeting.
Okay, so you put in the request to have the advertising?
Yeah, I will take care of getting it done.
Okay, all right, so we need to table this to July. I'll entertain a motion to table
So
this.
moved.
All right, Mr. Carter makes a motion to table the second reading home rule ordinance providing for board and commission terms to the
Second.
July regular meeting. A second from Ms. McPherson. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. That item will be tabled to July. All right, let's move on to A3. This is the item that we added.
No, this is different. This is not that one. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. I apologize.
Oh, the tab.
Thought it was the other item.
This is the framework. I was just looking, I've got so much stuff up here. This is the framework for the Eastside TAD agreement with the school district. I'll ask Ms. Sarah Andrews to come up and present this item, and then we will go from there. Go ahead, Sarah.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Well, we've been talking about the TAD for a long time now, and I'm happy to report that we've been negotiating with the school district, and we actually have an IGA in process right now, based on the framework that I'm about to present. So, first, I'll just start with the first page. The city is requesting the school district participate in a $21.2 million URA bond. That is Urban Redevelopment Agency, with an 18-year payback. So I'll stop right there and say Urban Redevelopment Agency is different than what we have talked about in the past. So the city, our financial advisor has talked to some institutions about whether they would buy this bond or not, the way we're presenting it. And the city is going to have to put their full faith and credit behind this bond, which is different than what we talked about last year when we spoke to the county. It is cheaper because there is less risk there. So it's about a So interest on the TAD bond, the way we've originally talked about it right now, would be at 6.25% interest. With us putting our credit behind it, it would be less expensive, so 4.25%. So this bond would cover nodes 1 through 3. So that is Arbor Valley, Fuquay, and Inline. It pays for infrastructure, 2 roads, and water and sewer. Let's remember that the TAD for us, the main thing was getting that Mirror Lake connector. So that's what this money will be used to pay for, along with the other infrastructure, which includes water and sewer. What we're also asking is that the school district give 13.5 mills of their 17.5 mills. So that is their millage rate, the property tax rate. So they would not be participating fully. This allows them to get 4 mills to use. So as things build out and property taxes are paid, 13.5 of their millage rate would go towards this bond payment, and 4 mills would go directly to them to be used for operational expenses. Because as these developments build out, there could be more kids in the schools, which is more legitimate expense for them. All right, if you go to the next page. So that's what we're asking them to participate in. This next page kind of outlines what we're offering to the school district for their participation. The first one would be a joint review committee. So a lot of times TADs have a TAD advisory board that the various jurisdictions participate in and have some recommending approval type representation. Instead of calling it that, we are creating a joint review committee where the school district would have 3 representatives. The city would have 3. The city would also have 3 representatives, and we're actually offering to have 1 county representative. So this joint review committee will look at various growth that we see in the city. Because again, the growth in the city impacts the schools, and we're trying to be cognizant of that and work with them so that they are aware of it and ready for it as well. So those next few points talk about what the Joint Review Committee would review. So any annexation past the southernmost point of the city limits right now, the Joint Committee, again, that's representatives of the school, city, and county, would have a chance to review that before it goes to P&Z. Next, they would see any residential developments that are south of I-20. That Joint Review Committee would also see. Again, we're trying to get the school district to have some, they would be able to report to the P&Z, which would report then to the city council, their thoughts on these residential developments and how it would impact them. Also multifamily and high density developments in the city. So if we go on about midway through this page, we're offering to include the school district in focus group type discussions as we're doing the comp plan review right now. That is ongoing right now. We've explained that to them. We hope to have it done by October of this year. So we're offering to have them be included in some of those conversations. The next couple, these are things that we wanted to point out. I will say the good thing about this TAD is that it has given us a good relationship with the school district. And we've never spent this much time with the superintendent and some of the board members. So that's been really positive, I feel like, even for the future. We have built a relationship with them now. So with saying that, we want to help them in any way we can. It'll be defined in the IGA, but assist them with acquisition for property around their schools that are in the city, which would be the high school, Glanton Heinzman, and Villa Rica Elementary. And also work with them to prioritize road repairs around those 3 schools. We'll need them to identify the needs for us so that we can prioritize that with what we're doing. Node 3, because of the promise of the TAD, that was leverage for us to work with these developers to restrict, to do age restriction on that zoning for Node 3. So one of the things we're offering is if they participate that we will maintain that age restricted zoning. The next one is reimbursement of legal fees. They've had attorneys involved with this to see how they could partner with us with this. So we're offering up to $25,000 reimbursement of that. One thing that they asked is that the developers in this TAD would contribute $25,000 towards expenses are going to have, again, increase in school enrollment causes other, I think has a domino effect for them. We are not committing to require that in the development agreement, but we have offered to request it. And then lastly, they'll be part of the approval process for any changes to the redevelopment plan that was approved in 2020. No pay-as-you-go projects in the East Side TAD, so basically we're not going to take that money and do other projects with it, and no tax abatements in the East Side TAD. So, again, this is the framework that has been presented to the school district. We've been going back and forth in various conversations, and we have an attorney now, bond attorney, that's looking at an IGA based on this framework.
All right, thank you, Sarah. I want to make a few comments about this. So this has, as Sarah has said plainly, this has been a long process, and we feel like we are at a place now where we have worked through as much of this as we possibly can. We do believe that the school has come to the table and negotiated in a way that was, had really good faith. We didn't get everything we wanted. They're not expecting to get everything that they wanted. And this is a framework where we think that we can get the schools on board. The specifics of each of these items, I'm trying to head this off before we get into too much of the specifics, because this language will all be hashed out in an actual IGA. But this is the framework of what it will look like. This is the nuts and bolts of what it would look like. And the urgency and why this came to us tonight is that they have a meeting tomorrow, and this is essentially what they will be presenting to their school board members. Now, I believe that's a work session. Their actual voting meeting won't be until next week, but that's why this is coming to you. It's also why it's coming to you at this late hour. I did want to say one thing about the change in how the bonding would be underwritten. This is really new information. We only became aware that this was a possibility in the last maybe week, but we only found out this morning that this was what the bond attorneys, this was the best they were going to be able to get us. Keep in mind, the economy has changed substantially since we began this process some 18 months or 2 years ago. Interest rates have gone through the roof, and all of that impacts the ability to get financing through the bond market. And that is part of what puts us where we are today. The other piece of certainly is that we are in more of an urban area than in Atlanta, so these bond underwriters have more faith in what goes on closer to the perimeter than they do further out, but it's a combination of all of those things. So with that being said, I want to I'll obviously let Tom have an opportunity to say something if you want to, but then I want to see if the council has any questions on this. And we are asking, now David, I saw you talking, and that always gets my attention. So is there anything about this that you would like to see modified in terms of the motion of what we're looking at if we were to?
No,
You would be okay with that?
Yeah, I am. I was just going to inquire as to whether or not you were going to entertain a motion to approve the proposal so that we could let the school board know is that.
So the motion before
I don't have the motion.
Yeah,
so.
I'm going to read it to you. The motion before the council tonight would be, I move to approve the framework for the East Side TAD agreement with the school district pending further negotiations. That's largely about
Yes, I think that's fine,
specifics.
and this is
Okay.
all subject to the final IGA that's drawn up
Yes, sir.
and making sure that we've dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's. So you'll have another opportunity to vote on the final plan.
So largely what this is about is the ability of the city council to be able to see this framework in open session, to vote for it, and that is for the school board to know that it's not just those of us who've been in the room in the negotiations, but that the council is fully aware of where we're headed, so that they don't approve something that's not going to ultimately be approved. Okay, any council members have any questions on this item? All right, Ms. McPherson.
Okay, so we've worked on the TAD for a very long time, but this particular agreement is like brand spanking new. And we talked a little bit. I guess what I want to know, because originally, you know, it wouldn't have involved the city backing it, right? And because, as you explained, the economy has changed. We don't have bond investors out there just beating down, you know, the doors to get to us. And so we had to make some changes. What I want to know, and I don't know if Tom, if you're, you know, which one of y'all want to answer this, how do you, where is the risk for the city with this as far as what we're doing? Because this is for infrastructure only, road, I was trying to read this, I didn't get to read through every line. How safe are we financially? Oh, and an IGA is an intergovernmental agreement. You know how the lingo just gets thrown around in case you hear IGA? That's what that is. So when we make an intergovernmental agreement with the school board or with a county, that's what an IGA is.
So the risk is that we don't generate enough revenue from the TAD district, which is purely property tax. And that would occur if we don't get the development built. So you've got 3 nodes and 7 developments.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got apartments in the first one, you've got commercial apartments and townhomes in the second one, apartments, townhomes, and houses in the third one. So all of that needs to happen, and not eventually, like it needs to happen. We need to facilitate the construction of the roads, all the permitting and inspections and all the stuff that goes on with construction. So we have a role to play in that, but the bigger role to be played is the economy. And right now, there's huge demand for housing. So that's in our favor. Interest rates have gone up, but they're not going up more. But they've adjusted up a lot on a mortgage in the last couple of years. So that's the risk, is that that for whatever reason, even if the developments are put together, meaning the infrastructure, the roads and the utilities and the grading and all that, the builder has to be able to look at that project and say, I can make money doing this, which means I can sell it, and not just sell it for anything, but sell it for a profit. So that's the dynamic that we're looking at. So clearly, we did not control that. The economy, the interest rates, the demand for housing. I mean, so we're not in control of this. We're just facilitating it, trusting that the market's gonna work.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. If there are no further questions, someone prepared to make a motion?
Yeah.
Mr. Carter.
I move to approve the framework for the East Side TAD agreement with the school district pending further negotiations.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Carter. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Momtahan. All in favor? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Might be a little late now, but does it make a difference that we're still calling it the East Side TAD versus the URA?
It's still a TAD.
Yeah, I don't think
Still
it does
is
not.
a TAD.
It still is a TAD.
The
Okay.
financing mechanism.
We're just not using TAD bonds.
I
We're
see.
using-
I see.
Yeah, URA bonds. Okay, let me move some of this stuff out of my way. I'm gonna move on to, okay, tab B. B1, the food truck vendor application for La Katrina Street Tacos. Did we make a decision, or do we want to table this?
The applicant is here tonight and would like to come forward and make some statements as far as what their actual intent is with their application, which I think might clarify some things.
Okay, that is, okay, well, we'll do that. That's not something we would typically do, but they do want it voted on tonight.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, then I want you to present it,
Okay.
and then you can bring the applicant up.
Yes, sir. La Katrina Street Tacos, that's a food truck. The applicant is looking to operate, or looking for the application for a mobile food truck to be approved for 451 Bankhead Highway, Suite 113, which is a commercial kitchen that the applicant also will be looking to utilize as a part of the taco truck. The staff is recommending approval.
Wait just a second, Ron.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
The staff is recommending approval, and the applicant is available to speak tonight.
Okay. Sir, give us your name and address for the record. Pull that mic down just a little bit, and then we'll be happy to hear what you got to say.
My name is Joel.
Joel?
And I live in 10 Pioneer Trail,
Okay.
Rica. And I'm just trying to get the license to start my operating my food truck here in Rica. And all I do is Mexican food. And
Well, so help me out. So do you make the food here and then put it in a truck and take it somewhere else to sell it?
I do my prep. I'm trying to do my prep in the kitchen and then take it to the food truck and cook it there.
Okay, so you prep at this 451 Bankhead Highway
Yes.
location. And then do you sell anything from that location?
No,
You just
not-
prep it there?
Just prep.
Okay.
Yes.
And then from there, you take it somewhere, the prepped food, and then you
Yes.
finally prepare it and sell
Prepare
it
and
somewhere
sell
else?
it,
Okay, hang on just a second for me. Are you thinking about this?
We're looking at it.
Okay,
here
well
to
then
fig-
let me,
figure
y'all
out-
go ahead.
The question's, where's the kitchen?
Is the kitchen here in Villarica at
Yes, it is.
451 Bankhead Highway? That's the kitchen.
That's the
It's
kitchen.
Tri-County Plaza.
It's Tri-County Plaza?
So
Okay.
where is it?
Where's the kitchen at? Is it in the little taco?
Yeah, it was
right
at-
behind the old bank?
Yeah,
the little,
it was at
the little.
Zapatillos before.
Okay.
Yeah, Zapatillos.
And all you do there is prep
Just prep,
food, but you
yes.
have your kitchen there.
Yes.
You cook some stuff there. Prep it.
I don't really cook, so.
You
I
don't
just
cook
do
anything
my,
there.
My vegetables and keep my meats and everything there.
You store it there
Yeah.
And preps it.
and prep, but he doesn't
Cooks in
prepare
the
it
truck.
there. All right, let's see if council has anything while I let my attorney sit there and think about this. He's got his brain cooking. All right, any questions for Joel? Hang on, stay up here. You're on TV. Just stay right there.
I thought our question was whether we had to approve it or not.
That's what it
This
is.
afternoon.
I think you do have to approve it so that he can get his license from the state, which is, I
Is that what
think,
we're
probably
dealing
what
with?
the question is here.
Okay. All right. Well, then, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Come on back up here, Ron. Okay, so given that, I will, does anybody have any questions for Ron before I take a motion? All right, Ms. Marchman.
Did I understand correctly, this evening, he was gonna do all this here, but he was gonna set up his truck or do his business in Douglasville? Was that what I heard?
Right.
That's one of his locations. Yes.
But I don't think it's limited to Douglas.
Yeah,
Mills.
but it's just one of his sites that he's gonna do this.
That's correct.
Okay, but not in Villarica, as of right now.
As of right now, no.
Okay.
But
Right.
if we approve this tonight, then he could operate in Villarica. That's my understanding as well. If he wanted to sell
He's
it.
got to ask us, come back to
Each
ask us
time,
if he wants
right?
to set it
For a new
up
location.
at the mill, yes.
Okay.
Yep, then that's good. I'm glad you clarified that. Mr. Carter.
Yeah, that was my question. What areas does this food truck serve? Is it just Villarica? Is it Douglasville? I mean, where's he go?
We'd have to ask him, I'm assuming.
Yeah, he disappeared.
Joel, you want to come back up?
He can go anywhere that allows him.
Yeah, if he got the
Well, he
license
can,
and
but
the
I'm asking
permit.
where he
Does he also serve? in-
Where do you anticipate using this truck?
I'm trying to be in Villarica. I mean, in Douglasville.
Okay, but you would go anywhere in the area, maybe?
Yes, maybe.
Okay, but you're focused on Douglasville right now?
Douglasville right now.
Is that, you got you, Mr. Carter?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just hang on there for a second. All right, anybody else? All right, is anyone prepared for a motion?
I am.
All right, Ms. McPherson.
I move to approve the applicant's request to operate a mobile food service unit, food truck, pursuant to Section 11.18, food trucks and mobile food vendors, according to Article 3 of the zoning ordinance.
Second.
All All right, I have a motion from Ms. McPherson to approve the applicant's request to operate a mobile food service unit, food truck pursuant to section 11.18, food trucks and mobile food vendors, according to Article 3 of the zoning ordinance. I have a second from Mr. Montahan. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Ron, you still there?
I'm here.
Let's do B2. This is what you live for, right? This is what you're here for.
That's right, Mayor.
All right, B2, RA-06-22, 1739 Carrollton Villarica Highway, rezoning from AG to SFA. Is this item, okay, all right, go ahead and present this item, Ron.
Sure. Okay. RA-06-22, 1739 Carrollton Villarica Highway. This applicant is, the staff is requesting to revert this application back to the Planning Commission since there's new information that has come in. So we'd like to have that voted on tonight so we can get it back to the Planning Commission in June.
All right, I'll entertain a motion from a council member to revert this item back to P&Z.
I'll make a motion to revert this item back to the Planning Commission.
I have a motion from Mr. Carter to revert this item back to Planning and Zoning. I have a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. You got that, Ron. All right, B3, VA-01-23, variance from section 9.144 of the Villarica sign ordinance. This item has a public hearing.
Thank you,
Go ahead,
Mayor.
Ron.
Jennifer Wolf, on behalf of Pilot Store number 4559, that's located on Liberty Road and Edge Road, seeks a variance from section 9.144 of the Villarica sign ordinance for a billboard sign that's currently in existence that's non-conforming, that they're looking to keep non-conforming as a non-conforming height, and add some different signs and reduce the size of several different sizes, including the pricer on the sign.
All right. Is the applicant here? Yes. All right. First, let me see if council has any questions for staff before I invite the applicant up. Ms. McCoy.
Okay, Ron, so we're clear. The sign is originally unconforming, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so they're going to add like we talked in the work session, they're going to add the Dunkin' Donuts to it, but make the Subway part smaller.
Yes.
So basically, the dimensions of the non-conforming sign are not going to change. They're just going to make stuff smaller to fit everything on it?
Bigger and larger. As far as the Dunkin' Donuts sign, that one's the only one that's actually getting larger.
Okay.
But the height, they're not looking to reduce it to a conforming height in the zoning ordinance. Which
Okay.
Is over here. Yeah.
All right. Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, so Ron, the height of the sign is a height that was allowed at one time. Now it's called non-conforming because we don't allow that height currently. But as long as you don't change it, you're grandfathered in. But if a storm takes it down or something happens like that or you want to change it, that's why they're here, right? Because they want a variance from what we would now require.
Well, correct, yes. It's a change to a non-conformity. So anytime that we have any changes to anything that's non-conforming that was approved under a previous zoning ordinance or sign ordinance, we would have to bring that sign or structure or what have you up to conformance with the current code if there's changes.
Okay, so my only question is this, because I'm very pro-business, but at the same time, I know what we require of all the businesses with signs. And I believe I read this in your report, but I want you to say it if this is accurate, and I recall it the way it was written here. Is the sign still visible from the road, or is there enough signage around that they can still be seen and people know that the business is there?
It is still seen from the roadway. It can be seen from the highway. I think it's one of the largest, if not the highest, largest sign in the city from a height perspective.
Well, I know that, okay, let me reword that. I know the current height one is. How is their signage otherwise? If it were conforming, if it fit in with what we require now, what is their do they have enough visibility so people know their business is there?
It's hard for me to know that without actually seeing some diagrams. As far as I guess from eye level at different various points That would be really the only way for me to know that. But I can say that the ordinance allows up to a height of 65 feet for a billboard sign. So that should be ample enough visibility from the same distance, since it's the same location. It's just a matter of just the height.
At 65.
At 65 versus 110.
Okay, thank you.
So if they
Ron-
keep the
Ms.
same
Marchman.
height, they can do anything on the sign they want to. I mean, it's changing stuff as long as it stays within the realm of the one they have got already.
No, so that's actually why we're here for this variance. That's why they're requesting it, because they want to keep the current height, but it's something that we don't allow. So the only option that they have in our current ordinance is to reduce the size of the sign, which is not what they're looking to do.
Or make no changes.
Or make no changes.
Right.
Correct, yeah.
And so,
All right,
Ron,
Mr.
just to
Montana.
clarify, to piggyback off Councilwoman McPherson's question to you, she had mentioned like if this was a storm or something like that, but this is not an involuntary action they're taking. They're not taking this because of a storm or other kind of a wreck or something, act of God. This is a voluntary decision they're making on their own.
That's right.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? All right, I'm going to invite the applicant up. No problem. If you'll give us your name and address.
Do you happen to have the video? Okay. Good evening, Mayor and council members. For the record, my name is Jennifer Wolf. My office is located at 4113 North Swan Street, Cummington, Georgia. I am acting agent for Integrated Image, sign manufacturer, Blood Sign Service, local sign installer, and subject address business owner, Pilot Fuel Stations. I have a video to share with you that might answer some of the questions that was brought up. Excuse me. Thank you, council members. This evening, I'm here to humbly request the approval for the proposed replacement cabinets on the existing high-rise sign, as well as the addition of one single-face cabinet sign to be mounted on the high-rise. The purpose of our request is to revitalize and improve the existing conditions while providing an individual sign cabinet for each of the subtenants, Dunkin' Donuts and Subway, for the pilot fuel station located at 95 Liberty Road. We have reviewed the agenda and saw that city staff did not support our request to keep the high-rise sign at the existing height of 110 foot when only 65 feet is permitted. Staff was also not in support of the request to replace but maintain the quantity of 3 cabinets on the existing high-rise sign. The sign ordinance allows only one double-sided cabinet sign to be permitted. The proposed signage actually provides a reduction in square footage. So currently there's 907 square feet on that existing high-rise sign. Our proposal for the signage we would like to have approved today is to 634 square feet. So it's a significant difference in square footage of 273 square feet. While we appreciate the staff's review of our submission and the recommendation, we would like the opportunity to provide the following information for council's consideration. As you saw from the video presentation, this site sits off the road a great distance, and the current height of 110 feet still provides visibility obstacles. To reduce the height to 65 feet per code would have this sign completely hidden by the vegetation that exists. GDOT does not trim vegetation often, and getting them to do so to make the high-rise sign visible to motorists traveling in both directions is nearly impossible. To only rely on the blue highway exit ramp signage as an identifier for fuel and food stops presents missed opportunities and greater liability options due to traffic congestion or visibility obstacles such as semi-trucks, RVs, trailers, boats that might be in the same travel path. In my professional opinion, the lay of the land, the vegetation, and topography is not a self-imposed hardship. With regards to the quantity of cabinets on the high-rise sign, there are currently 3 existing cabinets. We are asking to keep the quantity of 3 that was allowed in the past and add 1 additional cabinet to be approved. The request for the individual cabinet is to allow the subtenants to individually advertise food services to the public, independent of the fuel station and gas price or signage. The intended purpose is forward-thinking, that should a subtenant terminate the lease, this would allow a new tenant to be acquired and provide them with the same signage rights. A simple face replacement would be all that would be necessary. The purpose of Chapter 9.34 signs is to provide standards to signage to safeguard life, health, property, and public welfare, and to preserve the character of the city as stated in Section 9.34010 of the ordinance. For the reasons stated above, the proposed signage meets those requirements. The spirit and intent of the sign ordinance is to encourage desirable character with minimum clutter while recognizing the need for sign as a major form of communication. Provide fair and equal treatment to all sign users. Encourage signs that are well-designed and pleasing in appearance. Provide for maximum public convenience by properly directing people to various activities. All these are wonderfully outlined in your signage ordinance and exactly what we are proposing to do. Lastly, I want to thank you for your time this evening and allow me to present your findings and facts, our findings and facts to you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let me see if council has any questions for our guest. Anybody?
Well, I just wanted to ask real
All
quick.
right,
She had
well,
mentioned
all
her
right, Mr.
professional
Montpagnon.
opinion, but I just wanted to know what exactly her profession was, so we can.
I've been a sign project manager and construction project manager since I was 14. I've been a permit expediter for 22 years. I research code. I have a code check company independent of my permitting and variance. So I specialize in permit and variance consultant.
Okay.
And then I co-counsel in state of New Jersey with an attorney, land use attorney for variances there. So.
Okay.
Well, that sounds extensive.
And so, now you've mentioned that, do you have any, what's the history of reaching out to GDOT about lowering or cutting the vegetation?
Specifically on this site, I have not. In the past, with other projects located in the city of Atlanta, Cobb County, Marietta, I have run into constant issues and vegetation. Road maintenance is more of a priority than trimming vegetation unless there is a severe life issue.
Okay. And it's my understanding, and Ron can please clarify if I'm incorrect, but the ordinance will permit them to change a sign face, right? They just can't essentially add something, is what they're doing here. They're adding a new sign face, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the applicant, so I mean, so then it's my understanding that you could update, put the new logos and everything there on the existing sign, and you wouldn't have to be before us. Is that fair?
So there's some changes to the actual signs, right? The
Mhm.
different sizes of them, square footages of them. So if there are any changes, the ordinance, and I did put it in the staff report, just copied it right out of the ordinance, but it doesn't have any clause that states other than the entire sign has to be in conformance.
So even just
if
changing.
they were to change, so no. The only clause that's a part of that though
Okay.
is just the change out
Of the sign face.
of sign faces.
So they could
anything
take-
beyond that has to be 100% in compliance.
So the portion that currently reads pilot, they could switch out to the new version of their logo as long as it's the same size, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Mhm.
And that, it looked like a wooden subway sign, from what I could tell. That could also be changed out as long as it was the same size,
If
or?
it's the same size.
Okay. And it already notes Dunkin' Express on there,
Yes, that
Okay.
sign is going to be changed out.
if we grant their permit.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. McPherson.
Okay, so I only speak for one, but this is kind of my take. I have to admit, when I first looked at this, read the information, everything else, I leaned against approving this, and I'm trying to look at it both from the business standpoint, signs need to be visible, and from a customer standpoint when you're going down a highway. Whether you're in your vehicle or we need places like that because we pull an RV. So we've got to get in truck stops and that sort of thing. Now, so I was concerned, your video made a difference to me, at least in being able to visually see, because I haven't been over there to look at it this way, how the vegetation blocked it. And that does make a difference if you're the person going down the road, because by the time you see the little ones on the side, it's too late. It's too late. Now, if you get a billboard 5 miles in advance or two, you go, okay, 5 more miles, okay, let's keep an eye on it. That's the exit we need to get off. The one thing that I do like that you're doing, and let me just say this caveat too, I feel a little differently about it when it's closer to downtown. Okay, when it's off the exit, and it's over there like where racetrack is and that sort of thing. Feel a little differently about when it sits right off the highway where the traffic is. One thing that I did like is that the footage is smaller. So there is, in a sense, if people care about having clutter in the sky instead of seeing more trees or whatever, I like the fact that it's scaled down in size. And I personally, I don't think I have a problem with approving the variance because of the smaller scale and because I'm concerned about visibility for the business itself and as a customer or whoever's driving down the road that needs to see where those are.
If I may, I just wanted to address, Matthew, sorry, I probably
fine.
butcher your last name. You had valid concerns, and something I just want the board to understand is that the current LED pricer is not in operation. So in order to, you can't really repair that. It has to be replaced in order to, to display the pricing correctly, which led to, let's go ahead and fix this sign. Let's get it freshly painted. Let's go ahead and just revitalize. So while we could potentially do face replacements, that would leave that digital board untouchable.
Okay, I'll get to that question in just a second. Let me see if any council members have any other questions. All right, so let me ask that question. So we've talked about these before, I mean, not this particular case, and the facing that the councilman talks about, I'm clear on that. What I may not be clear on is if the digital sign becomes inoperable, could it not be replaced with the same size without having to come before this process? Because she just suggested that would not be allowable. Do you think it would be?
I think if they're going to replace the current pricing sign with one that's identical to it, that they don't need your permission to do that.
I could understand that, because if lightning hit it, I mean, why would we force you into some new order? Okay, all right. Would you like to say anything else before I do the public hearing? Because I'm going to do that next.
Sure. Mr. Coate with Integrated Image, who is the sign manufacturer, actually just corrected me and said that LED pricer is repairable. But again, it's not just flipping up a lid and changing out some light. There's a little bit of work that needs to be done. And there's a gray area with repairs that can be done. Usually in other jurisdictions, when you remove or alter a structure, and it's on a non-conforming sign, it's not allowed. So I think with what we're proposing, we're just trying to cover all bases.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough.
Thank you.
All right, did you want to speak
Yeah,
as part of the applicant?
Yes, my
All
name
right.
is Dick Cody from Integrated Image. I'm at 85 North Springs Road in Dahlonega. I
Okay.
represent Pilot, and I do the manufacturing of the cabinets, less the price signage. So that billboard, what Pilot is really trying to do is get rid of that billboard across the country. We're trying to do, even in Canada. We don't like the billboards. We'd rather go with the smaller pricer, because our pricer is going to be much smaller than that huge section. And that's our goal, is get rid of all the billboards and just put individual cabinets up. And in case, hey, Dunkin' Donuts decides to leave, we can swap that out. If a bone of contention is, hey, I don't want that fourth cabinet, I won't have the fourth cabinet. You know, I'll stick with the 3 cabinets, and I'll do something with Pilot to maybe split, you know, Subway, Dunkin' Express. It's much smaller, but, you know, that's really not the visible portion, right? That when you come off the highway, the important thing is seeing that Pilot and that pricer, and you can see that as you're coming over the, coming down the road and seeing it over the vegetation. So, if you have any other questions on the details of the signage and stuff.
Okay, we'll get back to that in a minute.
Thank you for the board.
You want something before I do
I had
the
a
public
question
hearing?
for staff, if I could.
Yeah, all right. Would you, as the applicants, would you like to say anything else before I? Yeah, you're welcome to wait right there, but I'm going to move on with staff and then the public hearing, and I may call you back up, but
Just want to say thank you for your consideration.
absolutely. Okay, come on up, Ron.
So, Ron, you saw the video and you saw kind of the form and the format and I guess the representations they made of what the sign would look like if we approved it tonight. Would our zoning ordinance or sign ordinance alone, I guess, basically force them to do as they represented there? Or do we need, if we were to approve it and they've made representations to us today that this is what the sign's going to look like, do we need to add some stipulations or conditions in there? I'm
not sure if I fully follow your question.
Well, I mean, they showed us a new sign and certain sizes. I think one of them was actually maybe, it looked like it was going to replace that Subway with an actual cabinet and not some flat piece of whatever material that was. So it did look like a better looking sign. So if we approve their variance tonight, how do we guarantee that we're going to get what they've represented to us there in that video? Does the ordinance alone, would the sign ordinance alone give us that product, or do I need to add a stipulation that the Subway sign has to be an actual cabinet and get into the nuances of?
Understood, yeah.
Right.
So our zoning ordinance actually does not even address sign cabinets specifically. So there's no requirement for them to have an actual sign cabinet at all, unless ultimately if they want a lit sign, which they do. So you can certainly make any conditions you would like as a council. But as far as our zoning or our sign ordinance, right, I guess off the top, there's no way to guarantee that it'll look exactly like that, because it's made with the discretion in mind for the applicant.
I think that you could and should, if the council chooses to approve it, to condition it upon compliance with the presentation that was made.
Do you think a condition that simple and straightforward? I don't have to get into the technicalities of the size of the cabinet, et cetera,
No,
David?
I think you can condition it on the representation that was made and in writing here in the staff report.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So that would include what they talked about, footage.
Yep.
Size, that sort of thing.
Let me ask you a question. How long has the sign been inoperable?
I would have to rely on.
Yeah, you can see it's partially out, and I don't know, I'd have to ask the maintenance department. But what we do, that's only a 6-inch deep cabinet that gets replaced up on top of what Pilot likes to do is get a larger cabinet, which is 12 inches deep, which has more of the 10-year warranty. So we're not going up there every 5 years.
Okay.
Those cabinets are only give a 5-year warranty. So we could just replace the face, right? But we'd rather get that monstrosity down and put a better sleek cabinet up there that looks much better than a billboard.
So a second ago, you said that if they weren't interested in the fourth cabinet, that you would do away with the fourth cabinet. But if you didn't have the fourth cabinet, would you even be here?
Yeah, I think we.
What would you still be here
Still
for?
be here.
Because of the digital sign?
The digital sign, but then also replacing the pilot. They've rebranded in a little bit different style, so we would, anything that we
So
did
does
other than the
does that
face
size
replacement.
change on the rebranding?
Mhm.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, a
all right.
reduction by 273 square feet, so.
Okay, all right, I get it. All right,
Overall.
let me do the public hearing. All right, so this is a public hearing. So is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this variance? You have an opportunity now to come up and make your opinions known. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Let me go back to staff. Council, do you have any questions for staff? All right, ma'am?
I think that lady back there wanted to say something. But
Do you want, does somebody want to speak? Okay, all right. All right, let me see if either of you have anything to add.
The only thing I would have, I can't see the motion here in front of me. I think it was a motion to disapprove.
There it is, right there.
Yeah, it's a motion to deny the requested variance. If that's your motion, that is it. If it's opposite from that, I would say to approve it with the conditions that the approval is limited to the representations in the proposal made to the council.
Okay.
Matthew's condition.
Okay. Let me see if council has any other questions for staff. Any? All right. Is there anyone who would like to be recognized for a motion?
I would.
All right. Ms. McPherson.
I might need a little help, David. I would move to approve the requested variance from section 9.14 by Jennifer Wolf and Pilot Store 4559. I need to say more than as presented, but also as
Conditioned upon
conditioned upon what was presented in the meeting to us
yes, and in the staff report.
and in the staff report.
That's a mess.
Well,
All
I'll-
right. So I'm
I'll
not going to be able
clean
to
it up
repeat
some.
that, but I think we got the gist of it.
clean
I have
it
a
up
second.
live,
I have a second from Ms. Marchman, but we are going to have some discussion. Let me say this: whoever's idea it was to create the video, that was a changer for you here, because my guess is this variance would not have gotten to this place. Whether it ultimately gets approved, I don't know for sure, but it feels like it might. I do think that the video added to this, though, in a way that most people don't come in here and are prepared to do. Because the first thing I thought is 110 feet is plenty of height. But in fact, watching that video, it might not be. But I would also submit to you that I don't know that it's going to make much difference, because it looks like almost none of it can be seen, even if you add these new. You're going to add these cabinets down below, and even less of it's going to be seen from there. But I wanted to give kudos for whoever created the video, because the fact is that probably made the difference here. Mr. Carter.
I just want to know from Mr. Councilman Monahan, did that motion satisfy your objection?
Yeah, sounded like it.
Okay.
Yeah, it did.
I mean, it met with what he was talking about. Whether he ultimately votes for it or not is entirely different, as we know. We've been here.
As you learned before.
Well, I've learned a couple of times. He will work them up, work them down, and then still let them fail. All right. So all right. So I gave an opportunity for further discussion. Is there anybody else who'd like to be recognized? If not, I will call for the vote on Ms. McPherson's motion. All in favor? It's unanimous. I mean, that's shocking.
Thank you.
That's shocking. Y'all deserve a round of applause for that, honestly. Variances are just something we don't do a lot, and I don't think we should. So you did well
My
tonight.
main question was it going to be visible or not? And if somebody couldn't give me that answer, that was going to be a problem, because I'd have to go out there and drive it to figure it out. So.
It's still not visible because of the trees. I
Yeah,
noticed
think
that.
it's
You
still not
can't
gonna
see
be
it.
visible.
So
As long as you can see the pricer at the top, that's what we're looking for. The
All right.
fuel. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good night. Let's move on to B. Is it 4? Am I at 4? Yeah. All right. VA-02-23, variance from section 7.056A and section 8.094A of the Villa Rica zoning ordinance. There will also be a public hearing on this item. Ron?
Thank you, Mayor. This property is located at 395 West Bankhead Highway, which is the commonly called the ice machine lot. This is at the corner of Dogwood Street and Highway 78. The applicant MQSK LLC is looking for 2 variances in the zoning ordinance in order to install a drive-through for a quick service restaurant in the front yard area and a reduction of the required landscape buffer from 20 feet to 2 feet. The applicant, or currently the zoning ordinance does not allow for drive-throughs in front yards, which is the main issue here with their application. So the staff is recommending denial for both of these variances, and the reasoning being that they are self-imposed variances.
Okay, we did have some discussion about this earlier today in the work session, but council, does anyone have any questions for Ron at this point? Mr. Montahan.
So, Ron, was it November, we passed a variance on this for the stream buffer?
We did, yes.
And I recall that one of the selling points was the landscape plan that was submitted by the applicant. But now they're coming back and asking for a reduction in that landscape. Is the reduction they're requesting here part of the landscaping that they've offered to us and kind of mitigation or abatement of the variance they requested in November?
Well, I may want to actually have them answer that for you.
Okay.
I am looking through their plan that they did submit to us. I'm sorry, just give me one moment. Thing is, a little slow here.
I don't recall seeing a site plan in here, but I may have just flipped past it or gone too fast.
Yeah, it that actually included the full construction drawings as submitted to us in the packet as well. There is a landscape plan that is there and that is shown. But I would like for the applicant to address the council as far as if what is shown on the construction plans is what is being proposed outright on the plan. So we'll have that on the record.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and do that. Is the applicant? Are you the applicant?
Yes.
Come on up here, sir. Give us your name.
My name is Rohil Hara, 6331 Crestgate Lane, Tucker, Georgia. Nice to see you all again.
Yeah. Likewise. Let me get you. You heard the councilman's question.
Yes.
Let me get you to address that first.
Okay. So we are not changing anything to the proposed landscape plan that we did, but so the ordinances ask for 2 things. They ask for either they ask for sidewalk and the landscaping island in the front of the property. Since you guys already know this property is like as weirdly shaped as it gets. It's a triangle, or I don't know what shape you can call it, but whatever you like. Yeah, piece of slice, which is really badly cut. So I mean, so we are still, what we are proposing is still the same amount of landscape, but when we met with the staff in one of the meetings that they held in a library, it's a tech meeting. Yeah, so we discussed that part, and in that meeting we realized that if we want to give the landscaping and sidewalk both, we have to go into the right of way, which is GDOT's area, and which they would not allow. So for us, we can either give the landscape or the sidewalk, and at that time staff recommended that they would want a sidewalk over there because it's more of a downtown area, and we have a whole lot of landscape, like almost 48% of our lot is going to be landscape once we are all said and done, as compared to right now it's at 0%. So it may reduce a little bit, and also for that, the problem is we will only have 2 to 3 foot left after that, so we would not be able to put up the tall trees and stuff, but we can still put some shrubbing and grass and all of that, so we're going to do that part. It's just that the trees and everything, you need a minimum of 10 foot as per our engineer and landscape architect for it to grow and be healthy. Otherwise, they'll keep on dying. So it's not we are not going to achieve the purpose of what we are trying to achieve. So we can do shrubberies and all of those things.
Okay. All right. Let me, now that you've answered that question, let me give you an opportunity to address the application before us.
So thanks for asking this question. My argument was pretty much this, that we are giving this lot right now, as you all know, it's really bad shape. There is no vegetation or very wild vegetation which is out there right now. So we are pretty much conforming it into, and we are providing way more than the vegetation is required just to turn this around and make sure the creek is stable and all of those stuff that we have talked about in the last variances. So that's pretty much my argument is the same way, that we can provide the sidewalk, but the landscape part of it has to be a little bit smaller in the front of the property, but the back side and all the sides of the property, it would have everything that we have promised. We are not changing anything, and we are doing that because of the hardship of the lot, because if we don't have any more space to provide that. And that's the site plan that was approved at the time of variance when we were here, and that's what our intent was throughout. So that's what we are trying to do. I think the second part of it was the accessory buildings. So it was not brought up before when we were here at the variance application last time, but we were educated afterwards that gas station would be considered as the primary structure, and the Little Caesar, since it's a smaller, it would be considered as the accessory structure. So we did not know about that, but again, the way this lot is shaped, there is no way for us to have the primary structure in the front and accessory structure in the back. As per the ordinances, accessory structures are supposed to be behind the primary structure. So that's our second variance that we are requesting, that we don't have a way to put it in the backside of it because of the way this lot is. And another thing is, I would like to remind the staff and the council is that the pad for the Little Caesars is ready, and we cannot touch that pad. Otherwise, we get into the state buffers and all of those things which we don't want to do. So it's the pad ready, so we have to be confined on that pad to do this. Otherwise, it cannot be done. So, and I think Bobby Elliott at the time, a city engineer, he explained that to the council at that time as well.
Right. I don't think there's a question about the pad, and you've addressed the landscaping, and I think that probably the sidewalks are the better choice anyway. It sounds like staff believe that. I believe the council believes that. The accessory building, though, you haven't addressed the drive-through on the front of the building and the impact on traffic and ingress and egress from the site. And that, to me, is a significant concern here beyond the landscaping.
Okay.
Do that. Answer that.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you. I just jumped the gun. So when we proposed this plan, we were always talking about doing a drive-through Little Caesars restaurant, because especially after COVID. But it's not a true drive-through restaurant. It's more like a pickup window. They put online orders, they come to the window, pick it up, and leave. So it's not like there is no menu boards or anything. We need, as per the ordinances, we need 7 car stacking. We were able to provide 6 car stacking based on the circulation of the property. Also, what we have to avoid jamming of the traffic within the property, what we have done is, instead of having full access in front of the accessory building, if you see, right now it's showing full access in the landscape plan. We have just converted that into a right out. So everybody enters through the side of the gas station, but when they come out, like the drive-through people who are stacking.
Let me do this. This is unusual. This is unusual, but I'm gonna allow you to come up here.
Okay.
I want you to show us, because this is. I don't want us to
If
sit
you
here and guess.
Flip the page before that, it shows the car stacked, I think. Yeah, there you go.
Right. Give me a handheld mic. Hand it to Ron.
All right. So the idea was, the traffic concern was legitimate. So the idea was that we will only allow this to be entry and exit both, which is called the full access for us, okay? But this side, instead of having a full access, because we didn't have enough space for cars to turn in and go around, and that would create the jamming issues within the property, what we have done is this is only gonna be the exit. So anybody who's coming around here, they're gonna come around, pick up, and go out. So it's a simple circle for that.
Can they make a left out of there or
No,
only
it's
a right?
only right out.
They can only make a right.
Exactly. So that's what we are proposing, that it's only right out, so that way that helps with the traffic and all the concerns that you guys have. We had the similar concerns, and we agreed with the staff at that point that it would be best to just go ahead and have a right out rather than full access here, because that would create more problems than a solution. So
Okay.
that's what we have
Does
done.
anybody have any questions while he's up here?
I do have a question.
All right, go ahead.
So if the idea is to have a right in, right out, I mean, I think we've all seen right in, right outs, and it's basically, it's a right in and right out in name only, because people will hang a left or in and out. So are you going to have a sufficient angle that, I mean, I know you cannot prevent people from doing something, but that angle itself does not look like it's a very much of a discouragement to be a right, to make a left turn out or left turn in.
So over here, the width of this thing is only 14. So, and also this is not complete over here, but it will be compliant with the GDOT's radius requirement.
For right in, right out.
For only right out. There is no
For
right in at all.
There's no
over
right
here.
in, right out only.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all it is. So it's gonna be compliant with that, and we will have it that way that even the curb will come this way, rather than making a completion here. It will come something like this and then go there. So that way, it would be very difficult to make a left out unless you are determined to do that at that point.
Right, and,
Right.
and you can't do anything about that.
Right.
Somebody's
Okay.
determined to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it would be designed that way.
All right, that's an excellent question. Thank you. That's highly unusual. I don't think I've ever done that before, but I think it was important for us to understand that. And I was not clear that you had a right out only out of there, and that seems to make a difference to me about that site. Although that site is it's very difficult no matter what we end up doing there.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
let
And
me
we have
see.
also reduced, sorry, I'm cutting you again.
Yeah.
We have also reduced some of the parkings in the front as well. And just the requirements that the way staff recommended, the way the requirements were, we have also reduced some of the parking in the front as well. So it just helps with the movability. And,
Okay.
people not backing into each other, basically.
Let me see if, Council, you have any more questions for the applicant before? Yeah,
Can we talk about the landscape again?
sure.
Can we flip back to the landscape plan? Okay, so my understanding is that these are the plans that you were submitted for construction. And so you had mentioned that you're not going to put any trees in there, but I see this plan here shows an oak tree, and I can't read that one, but, so are you not going to, like, the larger circles generally represent trees, correct?
Yes, so that's, I think this is the old one. Can you go down the next slide? I believe we have updated that. This is the one? Yeah. Okay, so I think we have updated that and might have submitted the wrong one, but basically the bottom line is you're correct, Councilman. The smaller circles will stay, the bigger circles will go away. So we'll have shrubberies over there, just not the trees, because we have to replace them with the sidewalk. That's the only difference. But we'll have the shrubs.
I wouldn't be in favor of the trees there anyway. That
Yeah.
is a busy intersection, a busy road. So doing away with the trees is better, in my view.
But in view of the fact that you're not going to have the trees, I mean, are you going to increase the density of the shrubbery and other landscaping?
Yeah, definitely. And
Okay.
that's what the updated plan was. I don't know why we messed on that, but I'm sorry about that. But we have basically added the shrubs and everything. So the front line is completely covered with shrubs. Like the density that you see, it's even more dense because shrubs can be put closer to each other. So
Sure.
we should be within the. I don't understand exactly how the root system work, but whatever the landscape architect has required as per the requirements, we will have that density on there. Definitely, that's not going to be a problem.
All right, anybody else? Let me ask you one more question before I do the public hearing.
Sure.
I'm really bothered by the pickup window being on the front of the building. Is there any way to get that to the side?
So if we do that, we enter into the state buffers, and that's
From the water,
but
the stream.
ideally, I agree with you. The best way would be that from the behind where the shrubberies are, right behind the building, we would have the drive-through go around. But if we do that, we enter into the state buffer, and it's already paved right now. But the idea when we initially met in November, the idea was to take away all that paving, make it nice and green, make it stable for the stream and for the city as well. So that's where we are bound.
Yeah,
out.
well, and in this particular case, I don't really find that it's self-imposed since that pad is already there and it can't be moved. Okay, let me do the public hearing.
Can I
Sure.
ask
Oh,
Ron
yeah.
one more thing?
Let's do, if you'll step aside, let me bring staff back up.
Thank you, Mr. Hatta. Ron, my main concern was the drive-through and cars getting in and out, and we had talked about that previous to the meeting. Based on what he's saying in, right out, and stacking 6 cars, maybe not 7, do you feel more comfortable with that? Because that was my biggest concern.
Yes, as long as there's controlled access to that that entrance or exit or what have you, which it sounds like it's obviously what he's proposing. I would just keep in mind that this is a GDOT route, so unless that's in writing somewhere, that there's in no way that can that be guaranteed that it can be an exit only or entrance only or what have you. So I would just caution that.
You mean it can't be guaranteed? Why? Because ultimately GDOT has to say yay or nay? Or,
Yes.
okay, so they would have to be okay with it for it to happen. Like, we could say this is what we want, and they could say, well, no, we want people to come in from either direction, which usually doesn't sound like GDOT. I mean, they tend to be more restrictive, it seems to me,
Right.
and picky about their roads. But I appreciate what you say, that it's not guaranteed.
Right.
Okay.
And from my discussions today with Bobby, he again wanted me to reiterate that as well to the council, that as of in the last several months, it's very unclear what GDOT will approve versus not approve. Unfortunately, we're kind of in a new territory with GDOT as far as their office changing staff. And basically having a new way of basically new sets of rules and how they do things as well. So
Okay.
he wanted
Hey,
me
Tracy.
to make sure I advise you guys of that.
Okay, and just a side note, this ain't new territory with GDOT. We've never really been able to find. I know they're making some staffing changes, but we run into this.
We never know what's gonna
As
happen.
long as I've been here.
I think there's new changes.
Okay.
Mayor-
All right, let me do a public hearing.
Mayor, since
Yeah.
Ron was back up, can I ask him one question real quick?
You want to do one more? All right.
For Ron. So, Ron, have you seen the new landscape plan that,
No.
okay,
This is the one that we're looking at is the newest one that I have.
okay. All right, thanks.
If you had a new one, you should have got that sent in. No, let me do a public hearing. All right, is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this variance? All right, seeing nobody, I'll go back to the app. That's fine, go ahead.
So just to answer Ms. McPherson's concern about GDOT, we have run it by GDOT, and they would not allow the full access near to Little Caesars building. They are very clear about that. We are still debating that if they would allow just the exit on that site. So they may restrict us not to do that, but they are not going to allow the full access. They are very clear about that part. We have already run it by GDOT, but the case that I made here today, I have made the same case to them that, hey, it's much easier for people to come in, grab the food, and get out of there. It's a simple circle rather than them trying to make a U-turn, because the way property is, you cannot make a
can't.
U-turn over that. There has to be an exit.
Do you have that in writing from them?
No, it's we have the conversations back and forth, but I can probably look up emails in which we have that. But there is nothing official yet. We have to get a GDOT permit, but we wanted to run it by here first and then show them that, hey, city is okay with this thing. Where can we go with you guys? That's the idea.
Okay, well, that does sound more like GDOT, that they would not allow the full access, but I'm only slightly more comfortable with this issue in terms of the traffic, if you have the right out only, but I'm still uncomfortable with the window on the front, but I do understand the hardship there and that it's not self-imposed. All right, let's go back to staff. All right, council, do you have any more questions for staff? All right, if there are none.
Actually, I'm sorry,
All right,
sir.
Mr. Montague.
So just to make it, so we did a lot of discussion here about this right out and the traffic, but the variance that's actually before us is the parking area landscaping and then the drive-through established the location of the window. So the question about whether or not we permit a right out is I can see it's tied into the location of that window. Is that how we got here?
It is. That's
Okay.
exactly how we got here.
Okay. And the purpose of, and I mean, just generally, Ron, I mean, the purpose of having a drive-through establishment window not being on the front, I mean, what is the ordinance's kind of spirit there?
I would imagine it's actually a couple reasons. One, not to have queuing of the line of cars waiting for pickup to be stretched all throughout the front yard area of of any sort of quick service restaurant or any drive-through establishment, a bank, for example. Usually you see drive-throughs, and it's been quite common practice for drive-throughs to be located on a side of a building, and the line wrap around the back of the building and come around. Just from a site safety and design standpoint, it's the least amount of cars that you have in a drive aisle, the better. So when we have cars entering or coming out of that drive-through line and then making a hard right to exit out, you could see that there's obviously, still traffic going next to those cars that are queued, right? That would be exiting the site. So there's two cars basically next to one another, both want to make a right-hand turn to exit at the same time. So there's still possibility of some issues on the site. So from a design standpoint, it is always better to have it on the outsides of a site, any queuing, or in the rear of a building itself, because it's a much longer line for the queuing and it hugs the building, so there's no crossing for pedestrians or what have you across parking lots and the like.
Okay.
Mayor?
All right, so let's, all right.
I was just going to say, the only nuance to that, on this one, compared to going up the street to McDonald's or whatever, they're already ordered and paid. They're pulling up the window and getting it.
Yes.
So it's not like McDonald's up the street.
Yeah, it's a pickup window more than a drive-through window.
Are they're already paid too?
Yeah. Because
They're
it's
doing
an
everything
online
on an
order
app.
that,
They're coming up. Okay, all right.
All right.
Curbside pickup and online drive-through window pickup services.
Yeah.
I mean, but I guess the thing is, though, we can say that here, but somebody hops in the line and wants to order a hot and ready for
They're not gonna be
$6.
sent away.
I mean, are they going to send them away?
No.
No, but hot and ready, if they are hot and ready, you can hang them and give it to them as quickly as you can give them the
I mean,
mobile
but
orders, right? If
but
they're
the
hot and ready.
but the employee or the manager is not going to say, "You need to come inside, sir," or "Ma'am."
Technically,
Right.
they're supposed to say that, but.
Okay.
I mean, you're right, but we cannot
Yeah.
control them, how much they're gonna say, how much they're gonna impose. I cannot comment on that.
You know too much about hot and ready, I think.
Hey.
That sounds like you know
I have a
too
law
much about
degree,
that.
and
All
it
right, let's
just
remember,
costs money.
we're hungry, we've been here a while. All right, let me remind everybody, so what is before us, there's two variance requests. The first one is the parking area landscaping, okay? And the second one is the drive-through establishments. So I am going to see if anyone has a motion on the parking area landscaping, first item. Anybody wish to be recognized? Mr. Montahan.
I'll make a motion to approve the parking area landscaping variance request on the condition that the parking landscaping plan does show an increased density at staff's discretion and approval.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Montahan that's modified from the motion before us, but it is a motion to approve the requested variance from section 7.056A. And I have a second from Ms. Marchman. Is there any discussion? All in favor? All right, that is unanimous. That is the motion, that is the variance on the parking area landscaping. Now, we're going to move to the drive-through establishments. Is there someone who would like to be recognized for a motion on the drive-through establishments?
I would.
All right, Ms. McPherson.
I will preface this by saying I am not entirely without any concern, but I know that property is extremely challenging. I move to approve the requested variance from section 8094A by MQSK LLC as presented.
All right, there is a motion from Ms. McPherson to approve the requested variance from section 8.094A by MQSK LLC. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second from Mr. Carter. Is there any discussion? Mr. Momtahan.
Well, Ms. McCoy is raising her hand down
Oh.
there.
Okay, Ms. McCoy.
I just wanted to say, we have talked when y'all were here before and right now, how difficult this site is and how hard it is to develop. And I'd just like to preface, even though we've had a lot of discussion about that, right now it's an ice machine and a slab. And that, is there really anything else that can possibly, like, I think this is the best option for this site. So it's logically going to need some variances. That was my only discussion point.
All right, Mr.
Well,
Momtahan.
I would just ask Councilwoman McPherson if she would amend her motion to add the condition that unless not permitted by GDOT, that be an exit and a right-out exit only.
I'm amenable to that. Let's go back here.
Well, hold on. Mr. Carter, would you be amenable to that as a second? All right. Ms. McPherson, restate that motion.
I keep getting the motions that aren't written. I move to approve the request for the variance. Can I not say all the numbers again, David?
No, you need to say them.
From section 8.094A by MQSK LLC as presented with the condition of would it be the approval or requirement by GDOT?
I would say unless GDOT says this is not permitted, then I think we should require it. That's my view on it.
Okay, require the single. Okay, just
All right.
GDOT approval. I don't have to
I don't want any
preface,
help.
I don't have to preface one right out, right in, one way, just that we approve it as long as GDOT is good with
All
it,
right, let
and
me-
that
let-
needs to
all
be
right,
cleaned up.
Let me do this. David,
Is that,
I want you to
I-
breathe, and then I want you to do one. for me.
representative government is very
Okay.
messy.
I think the motion is I move to approve the requested variance from section 8.094A by MQSK LLC as presented, conditioned upon the council's approving the proposed exit being a right exit only.
Does that meet?
I guess unless GDOT says vetoes it. I mean, that's
Yeah,
pretty much,
I mean,
I'm
it's
just trying to
always
give
gonna be
the,
subject to GDOT, no
Right,
matter what
okay.
you do, but
Okay,
you-
all
the
right, you got
council is
that.
saying that you're
That's the-
conditioning it upon that.
That's the motion that
Okay.
you'll have.
Our
Mr.
condition.
Mr. Carter, will you second that motion from Mr. Macklin? Okay, all right, now we have a motion. Is there any more discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. So you'll take that motion from Mr. Macklin. All right, you got it. And if you do what you say you were gonna do, you'll be fine.
I'm sorry I bring the.
If you don't,
you guys, but-
you won't be fine.
We put you through the ringer last time, I remember.
All right, thank you.
And,
Let's,
hot and ready on us once the site is developed.
oh, Lord. Is that everybody in the room? Be careful. Be careful. All right. So I think the point is you invite everybody in the room down there. All right. But they have to pay for their own. That's $5, right? Hot and ready? All right. Okay, here we go. B5. If they could say the motion, I get that. Nobody gets that. All right, B5. CU-01-23, special exception use permit to operate a truck parking facility. This item also has a public hearing. Ron, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Riliwanu Alu, Dr. Alu, seeks a special exception use permit in order to operate a truck parking facility at the northwest corner of Industrial Boulevard, Highway 101, and West Industrial Court. Had some conversations with the applicant since we've been in the room, and they have now requested for a carry to the next meeting while they continue to improve their application.
Okay, to July? To July?
Mm-hmm.
All right, does this need to go back to planning and zoning?
No, it does not.
All right, so I will entertain a motion
Yeah.
to take,
I move to table this item to the July meeting.
all right, have a motion from Mr. Carter to table this item to the July meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Woo! That's everybody.
speed it up.
You just pick somebody.
Get on the next
All right,
one.
all in favor? All right, that's unanimous. All right, let's move on to B6, RA-01-23, rezoning of 45.26 acres at Punkintown Road and Dallas Highway. This item also has a public hearing. Ron.
Arpit Realty LLC is seeking a rezoning of 13 parcels along Punkintown Road and Dallas Highway from a single-family agricultural zoning to a mix of commercial low-density C1 and single-family attached SFA. They would be reparceling the lots in order to construct a 120-unit townhome development for 55 and up age, and also a neighborhood commercial development. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-0 to deny the application, and the staff is recommending approval with conditions conditions that are outlined below on the cover sheet.
Okay, council, does anyone have any questions for staff before I bring up the applicant? Okay, hearing none, is the applicant here?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Applicant, come on up. Hello, sir. Give us your name and address for the record, and then we'll let you present your application.
Terry Dobbins. I live at 313 Hiram City Road in Dallas. I represent Arpit Realty. We plan on doing this project. I think we got a plat on it showing the size of the commercial. Got a lot of interest in the commercial property. We haven't signed anything with anybody, obviously, because we don't have the zoning. A lot of good things that want to come there. And the townhomes, I think, was seen to be a problem for the zoning people, but we want to do 55 and over, and we want to rent these units. We don't want to sell them. That's going to help the city with taxes. You know, as long as they're rented, they don't get any homestead exemption, that type of thing, so you get more taxes off of it. I've been around Villa Rica since 1955. Graduated in the class of 1969. Lived within 10 miles here all my life. Been developing since 1987, and done a lot of development in Paulding County, Carroll County, done a lot of stuff in Temple. You know, been at it a long time, know how to do it and how to do it right. We've got about $20 million set aside to start this project with, and then, you know, we sell off and different things, rent, whatever, then we'll put more money into it. But we can, as soon as the engineer gets finished, we start to work. He's about halfway done with our design right now. So that's where we're at. Any questions, be glad to try to answer them for you. If not, he can come up and answer them.
He who?
The engineer.
Okay. Well, let's do this. Why don't you tell me what I'm seeing on this screen right here?
Okay, on the upper right-hand corner next to 61, that'll be a convenience store. That's the only thing that we're for sure on. Then there's going to be other retail space down along there, strip centers and that type of thing, individual buildings for restaurants. Trying to do on the other side of the road there, next to the corner of Punkintown, trying to do a larger unit there, some kind of community grocery store, or we've had 2 or 3 people talking to us, but I haven't signed anything because I don't want to commit something we can't do. But looking at probably a 50,000 square foot building there. And that's basically where we're at. We've had a couple of banks talk to us. Everybody's just waiting until we can go into contract with them. And then behind there then is the townhome units. They'll be all one level. We'll have the unit be facing the street, but then there'll be parking in the back, have an alley for trash pickup and all that type of stuff behind it. We may make them a little bit larger than what the plan is, just depends on, we do a little more studying, and we want something that the people want to have. You know, a couple 100 feet doesn't matter to us one way or the other. We get it functional for the people.
Okay, we'd be a little bit premature for this question, but because it looks like these are really the widths are really tiny. Do you know what the widths of these townhomes are?
Should be on those plans that we turned in.
Well, it'd be helpful to me if you knew.
Well, I'd have to look at the plan to tell you. I don't have a copy of them.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna go through the plan to find it.
No, I mean, isn't it on the floor plan that we gave you? There should be a floor plan. I apologize for not having it, but I sent it in to run them to put on the screen. Designed by Allen Bales architect firm.
What's our ordinance minimum?
I think it's 22, but is this the engineer?
Huh? 40 feet wide.
40 feet?
40 feet
okay.
wide.
And these
Yes.
are ranches.
Yes,
so,
sir, all
okay.
one level.
All right. Okay. All right. Good. Good. All right. So let me see. This is your engineer?
Yes, sir.
Sir, do you want to say anything before I open it up for questions from the council?
So Avery Ward, HRC engineer, 6554 Church Street. I will say we've been working on this for about a year now, closely with the city staff and coordinating with GDOT. So really it's the realignment of Punkintown, you know, as I understand it, it's bound to happen eventually. And the new Villa Rica bypass where that roundabout's coming in at, it just kind of ties in well there. You know, this is a community crossroad, and we know that commercial is kind of growing down 61. We just feel like this is a good use there. And then we've got, you know, the commercial in the blue and the residential in the green, kind of higher density residential, just to make that transition from the commercial to the single family around it a little bit better.
Okay. All right, council, do you have any questions for the applicant or the engineer for the applicant? Mr. Montahan.
Mr. Dobbins, if I can ask you a question. So I was looking at the, you heard the discussion earlier in this meeting referring to the TAD. And so, I'm sorry, this thing is being slow. It's not loading. But basically, there are 9 conditions on that staff has included. The 9th condition basically says that if your property is not included in the TAD, or if the TAD is not approved, that you're essentially off the hook for contributing to the fire department, doing an age-restricted zoning, age-restricted housing, and then also the realignment of the proposed road. Are you familiar with what I'm referring to?
Yes.
Okay. And I know part of the contention in this issue is this idea that you had come up here and told us that you wanted to do a 55 age-restricted housing, but your application here is kind of unequivocal about, or is equivocal, I should say, about whether or not you're going to do the age-restricted housing. So I think my proposal, and let me just see if you agree with this, was that would you commit to doing age-restricted single-family attached townhomes there regardless of the status of the TAD?
Yes, sir. We don't want anything but 55 and over.
Okay.
That's our market. We don't want anything less than that.
Okay. And then my next question is, if you look at the elevations for the 55-plus townhomes, there's a 440 foot square foot 2-car carport, and it's accessible from the rear alley. But when I look at the site plan you submitted, it's not entirely clear that there are rear alleys. Well, maybe there are. Yeah, they're not.
Changes to the engineering part. We're not finished with that yet.
Okay.
But you intend to have rear load?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And so would you be amenable to a condition that requires rear load?
Yes, sir. That's fine.
Okay. That's all my
Is
questions
that
for
it?
now, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Ms. McPherson.
Might be a little bit more of a comment, Mr. Dobbins. I don't really, as far as I know, take issue with the commercial, especially along 61. I think we expect that along the highway to that, you know, commercial on up and then the hook in. I do have some concerns about the density of the population, whatever the age is, although I do know that it's a little different when it's 55 and up. With it being an agricultural area, I have a lot of constituents in that area that have that rural life there, larger properties. And it's pretty dense, but what I found concerning, it's not your job, but although I know the city's been working on this for a long time and talking behind the scenes, as the council person that represents that area, I was given very little information about what was going to be proposed ahead of time while all these things were going on for months. And so I would just say that I'm fairly comfortable with the commercial. I didn't quite understand this part facing Punkintown. I know some of this, it's not in stone. You know, it's like this is what could be there on that corner of 61 in Punkintown. But I do have a concern about the density and for the constituents that live in that area in an agriculturally zoned area.
All right, anybody else? Okay. Do you want to add anything before I do the public hearing?
I'm good, I think.
Okay.
You
Yes,
got
sir.
Yeah, I would like to add that I believe that there is a buffer between those two zonings, the residential and the agriculture, and we'll comply with those buffers.
Okay, all right. All right, if y'all would just step back. Let me see if I have anybody here who would like to speak for or against this rezoning. Sir, if you would come up, give us your name and address for the record. We'll give you 3 minutes, and we will hear you.
My name's Aaron Boober. I live at 1094 Dallas Highway. The picture that was up there, where they're putting in the commercial property for this 45.27 acres, that driveway actually will come across the street from mine. Okay, Stockmar Road, everybody here that's ever been out there in traffic, it's unreal. There's accidents constantly. They've already taken the ditch out. That's what the DOT is doing. They're taking the ditch, which already puts my family at risk. Now, coming from Paulding County, I am the third house in Villa Rica.
If you get a little closer to the mic.
My neighbor is the fourth house, which is Mr. Busbin. He owns the house next to me. Those are the 4 houses, only houses. But all this commercial property that's going to be put across the street, what does that mean for the ones of us that live right on 61? And then the people that live behind me. We only have one more strip behind us. There's a little road that goes back there, one little strip. It's just as bad on them coming out. There's accidents there constantly. Doing this and putting commercial in, and then he doesn't even know what he's putting in. It could be, but what does that mean for us? I mean, it literally takes me 10 minutes to get out of my driveway now. And I mean, we've been here, my family's been here since 64. That's when the house was built. Busbin's house was built in 58. The neighbor's house was built in the 60s. They're still there. We came to this community and took over that house from my parents years ago. But it was because of the community. But I'd like to know, is Villa Rica's purpose to cram as many people as they can into the area from Stockmar Road to Mirror Lake? Because if that's the case, I'd like to know so that I can leave. Because I know what happens when you put apartments in. Go to the police department and ask them. When you start doing that, you start causing more crime. You start getting, just because it's 55 and up does not mean that a 55-year-old cannot go rent that place and go, hey, yeah, go ahead. You can stay. Now, I was at the last meeting when he was talking about it, and it went from 55 and up, and then there was a talk about, well, maybe only 50% of them will be 55 and up. And then I'm pretty sure it was you might have been the one that asked, what happens when you can't fill those apartments at 55 and up? You're still going to have to come up with the revenue. Well, if you can't come up with the revenue, who are you going to rent it to? Whoever they can. Now, commercial buffer they're talking about going around to Stockmar Road from behind through the commercial property, but what about the commercial property? I mean, there's a big difference in a gas station, a grocery store, or a trucking company that's across the street from my house. And grocery stores bring a lot of problem too, and I know that for a fact. My brother lives behind the grocery store, just right over there off Nebo Road. So if it can happen there, it can happen here in Villa Rica. I already know that, but I also know what comes along with that. So is there a plan to kind of keep these people accountable if they're planning on putting something in there that's not going to affect all of us on the other side of the road?
All right, thank you. So I will say that in a zoning, and I'm just going to make this real quick, but when you zone property, whatever the condition is of that zoning will stick with that property until it's changed by this council. So if it is age restricted, it will be age restricted. All right, is there anybody else here who would like to speak for or against this item? Sir, come on up here. Give us your name and address for the record.
Dennis Lingle, I live at 675 Punkintown Road, Villarica, Georgia. And Miss McPherson, I think, hit the nail right on the head. If I could see that green map again.
She won't be able to pull anything up, sir. You'll just be able to talk.
Well, we live right in that corner. We've lived there for 31 years, 32 years. Yeah. I took a job in Georgia in 1991.
You'll get a little closer to the mic.
Found me a little slice of heaven. I bought the house. My wife hadn't even seen it. Thank God she liked it.
Yeah, that's right.
But got a little stream, little bridge, got lots of trees, beautiful home. And now, what am I going to have? I wish I could show you that map. You're dividing my property into 4 pieces, you know. It's going to be, as near as I can tell on the last deal, part of my property is going to be a fire station. Who wants to live by a fire station? Also, it's going to be a sewage push up the hill or something, whatever that is. But like I say, I just wish y'all would do it or get off the pot. We've been messing with this for 25 years, you know. We went to meetings not long after we'd been here with GDOT and everybody else. So, you know, I just want to know, and I'm sure a lot of folks want to know, what are we going to do? What am I going to do with a piece of property that's got a road coming right through it and it's split up in 4 pieces? What's that going to be worth? My house isn't going to be worth spitting on, you know? So, like I say, I'm not for or against it. I'm against it for the fact that, like they say, apartments breed crime and that kind of stuff. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, sir. All right, is there anybody else here who would like to? All right, we know you, but if you'll give us your name and address for the record, we'll hear you.
My name's Dr. Steve Woodall. I
Yes,
live
sir.
at 686 Punkintown. My question is this, and I think I've expressed this to Leslie very often, and you too, Mayor. What are y'all doing to our side of town? I mean, we're talking right now, you've got 192 units on Anderson Road. You've got 240 and 220 units at this new TAD. You've got a possibility of 520 at the other TAD that y'all keep talking about up by Old Stone and North Avenue. And then the question is this, we're putting in a double the size of Publix. Now we're talking about this. I was sitting, while I was riding a tractor today, bush hogging, I was noticing that the traffic with the roundabout was already backed up to Old Stone. You know, I don't know how y'all think that you're going to compensate for all this, because, I mean, if you go to I-20 in the morning, you're going to have problems turning left to get on I-20. If you're coming off of 20 coming to Liberty Road and you take a left at Pilot, you can't make that turn. You've got a problem with the traffic coming off 78, where transfer trucks are coming up and trying to cross Liberty Road right there. And if people are not nice to them and let them come out, they have no way to get out. But anyway, my question is this: water, sewage, traffic. I don't think we've got a plan in Villarica. I think we're just throwing everything we can to these different spots just because we can get something here, and you're going to blow the whole place apart. And that's my concern about Villarica.
All right, thank you, Steve. All right, anybody else want to speak for or against this? All right, come on up here, give us your name and address for the record, and we will hear you.
Hello, my name is Carla Harbinchuk, and I live at 51 Town Creek Drive. And the proposed townhomes and everything is literally directly across from my house. Like, the zoning sign is 10 feet from the end of my driveway. And I haven't heard anything about a buffer space. All I've heard is that they're going to change the entrance to the entire subdivision and route it through townhomes. And the traffic is already insane just trying to get out and turn left onto Punkintown Road. And I don't think that it's too much of a leap to say that if you add 100 some odd units, that's gonna mean more people, and more people on that road is, I mean, it's already not in great shape. I don't think that adding the traffic from an entire another community is going to help any of that. And also, as far as like the infrastructure goes, whenever it gets too windy out already, I mean, we lose power. If trees, it's not even just storms. It's just if we have a gale here and there, we lose power. And how is that going to? You can't add another community onto that when there's already clearly an issue there. As far as like everything that we already have in place, I mean, I know I moved here specifically because I wanted to have a yard. I wanted to have, a place where I could just, look out and see woods. I didn't want to move to somewhere that was going to be, an entire row of apartments. If I wanted that, I'd go back to Cobb County. I could go back to living in Roswell. I could go to any other, anywhere around the perimeter of Atlanta. But the reason that I moved out here, and I know a lot of other people have chosen to live here, is because they don't want houses stacked on top of each other. I like the fact that my house has been around since the 90s. It has established trees. There's plant life that's already been there. It doesn't just look like sod that's been rolled out with some trees stuck here and there. I mean, at the end of the day, it's what it is now. Has wildlife, there's birds, there's all sorts of different creatures that live in those woods across from where I live, that if this goes in there is just going to be another row of houses that looks just like Cobb County or anywhere else. And that's just not why I came to be here at all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else? Come on up. Give us your name and address for the record, and we will hear you.
Okay, sorry. Hello, my name is Sebastian Wilson, and I live at 51 Town Creek Drive in Villa Rica, Georgia, 30180. And one of my main concerns, I'm going to bring up some like the ecological issues, not necessarily the societal, social issues, which a lot of people have talked about, the traffic and everything else. I'm a student and I attend Kennesaw State University. I take a right off of Pumpkintown Road, and it already takes me, I already have to leave 2 hours early because of traffic coming through that area to get to class on time. So things like that are really, really gonna like put a strain on somebody that commutes like I do. But again, back to the ecological things. I know in the comprehensive plan that was proposed in 2018 and that was put together, it was done very, very well, and I really, really appreciate a lot of the things that are in there. One of the main things that was talked about was, 3 minutes, was maintaining the small town feel and heritage of Villa Rica. And I don't believe that putting in this large commercial structure, not necessarily the townhomes, it's already purchased by the developer, so something's going to go there eventually, whether it's denied or delayed. I know that, right? But putting that commercial property there is really going to depreciate that small town feel and depreciate the heritage of the area, which is wildlife and wildland, right? And then going back to wildlife constraints, there are multiple projects already going on in Villa Rica. This is 45.26 acres, I believe. There are multiple projects going on right now at the same time, right? So if we think about the constraints on wildlife, not just on the human animal, right, on the other animals that exist in the area as well, they're already being pushed into other areas. If you have multiple projects like this going on at one time, you're really going to put a strain on their land usage and put a higher interaction rate between humans and wildlife. there are also 3 endangered species of bats in this area that are specific to this region of the United States as a whole, not even just Georgia, the United States as a whole, specifically here. Sorry. Yeah. Resource constraints, land usage, creating functional comprehensive plan that begins with defining the long-term plan for Villa Rica development and planning, not just the immediate now and what Villa Rica can get out of revenue for the area, but the long-term comprehensive idea of what you have laid out in your plan, something probably like 10 years in advance. How is this going to affect in the long term? Is it going to cost more for us to fix something that's a problem now? Are we going to be proactive versus reactive with our construction, our zoning, and our planning, as opposed to having to spend more money later with something that's not an issue now? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Also, I have some documents that I printed. If I could give those to you all. No? Okay.
Give them to the clerk.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Sir, come on up. Give us your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. My name is Roger Hudson.
All right. Get
346 South Wilson Street.
If you'll get a little closer to the mic.
I live at 67. Name is Roger Hudson. I live at 347 South Wilson Street in Villa Rica.
Okay.
But I go to church at Macedonia Baptist Church, 2000 Dallas Highway. And as everyone has been talking about, is the traffic. I don't know what you all are going to do about all this traffic because of the fact that right now, it's hard for us to even get into the church and get out of the church. We've been there for 138 years. We right below Stock Mart Road and stuff. And we just don't know, and we would like to know more about how you all going to conduct the traffic that's going up and down the road, and how is the church going to be able to people to come in and out safely. Because we just had an accident 2 weeks ago. Someone sitting there getting ready to pull into the church. Someone from Dallas just came up through there flying and just knocked them on the other side of the road. It is a big problem. And then the roundabout, I just don't know what to say. The roundabout is no more than a racetrack, for everybody that comes up to it. Yield is yield, but it's not yield at this roundabout. I don't know if it's too small or too big. I just don't know. But people they don't have no respect for another driver. So I just like to know how can we find out more about the traffic, the flow of the traffic that's going up and down Dallas Highway and coming off Punkintown Road. As I say, we've been there for 138 years. We haven't seen anything like this, which I haven't been there for 138.
I was wondering. I didn't know.
I'll make sure you know. But we just, that's why we're here. And you all can expect to see us more than just this time. But we would just like to know that that area, and we would like to know who is over that area out there, 2000 Dallas Highway. Is it Miss Leslie?
That is.
Oh,
public comment. I'm sorry.
We'll see where we're at in a minute.
Okay, thank you,
Keep
sir.
going. All right, thank you. All right, is anybody else would like to speak? Sir, come on up here. Give us your name and address for the record. We'll give you 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm Mike Lockridge, live at 625 Punkintown Road. I'm originally I spent 50 plus years living in Cobb County, taught in Cobb County for 33 years in the high school in Powder Springs. I know what congestion is. I know what a lot of building and development is, and we are certainly moving in that direction. Some of the things that concern me, a little bit off the mark here, is this new development of the Punkintown Road area. I think one of the things that really concerns me about all of this stuff is the our livelihoods where we're at are not being necessarily, maybe you move people in, maybe you don't move people in, but our livelihoods are being disrupted because, like on my road, in other meetings we've had, 16,000 cars go up and down Punkintown Road every day, every 24 hours. I don't remember the key word that was used, but 51 miles an hour is the median or average in a 35 mile an hour zone. I could live on Punkintown Road if somebody was driving 35. I've seen cars in front of my road, in front of my house, drive around past vehicles on the shoulder of the road on doctors' property in certain flat areas just because they didn't want to go 35. Now, I know there's a lot of different things that have to happen, but the thing that concerns me the most, and I loved living in Cobb County, I wouldn't have changed where I taught for $1 million. But we moved here, and living where we live, our quality of life is getting worse because of the laws that aren't being upheld, violations of on the roads, or somebody called it a roundabout. It's not a roundabout, it's called an oval about. and I know the city had nothing to do with it. I know it's the state. I've got in a conversation about that. But those things, I think that will change with the other one, but our biggest concern has to be with our quality of life. And if we're going to continue to build places, we got to at least enforce some rules so I can get in and out of my driveway without getting run over.
All right, thank you. Okay, anybody else? All right. If nobody else, I'll close the public hearing and I'll revert back to staff. I'm just going to say a couple of things. Well, really maybe only one. Well, maybe a couple of things. So the roundabout, this same number of people showed up here about the intersection when it was a three-way. And when we put in that roundabout, when the state came in and put in that roundabout, I had an equal number of people praise and be really excited that that happened. And it has moved traffic. So it's much better than what it was, but guarantee it's not where it needs to be. And when that second roundabout goes in, we're going to feel congestion from that too, but that is going to happen. That and that north bypass is going to happen. Those things will help to move some more of that traffic out of your way, but it is not, we're going to feel some pain for a while as some of this development happens. And I'm just going to say that as long as we're on I-20, as long as we're this close to Atlanta, as long as people are willing to sell their property, this development is going to continue to move. What we are trying to do here is to be as responsible as we possibly can while we move through this growth period. We are putting on the brakes where we can, but as long as this property keeps getting sold, it will keep getting developed. And as long as people own property, they're going to have a right to some development. We know there's a chicken and egg issue with this traffic. There's no question about it. We can't go out and build all the infrastructure and anticipate the growth because we don't have the money for that. So this stuff happens sort of chicken and egg, back and forth. I get a little money to do the improvements, we do the improvements. This comes from some development. But I feel just like you do. I've lived here my whole life. I hadn't been here 100 years like this gentleman has, but I've been here a while, and I've watched this same thing happen. And we are pumping the brakes everywhere we can. But this stuff is going to keep going as long as we're on I-20, and as long as we have this railway moving through here, and as long as we're this close to Atlanta, and frankly, as long as Georgia continues to be the best state in the union to do business, this is going to happen to us, all of those things. So I hear you, and we're mindful of all of these considerations, and I appreciate all of you coming out here tonight and voicing that with us. And what happens here, I don't know for sure. But those are the realities of what we're facing here. This is not we can't just slam the gate closed. That's not going to happen. There's nothing lawful about that. That is not going to happen. All right, Ron. All right, staff is back. Council, do you have any questions for staff or the applicant at this point?
I'll let Leslie.
All right, Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, Ron, would you remind us where planning and zoning was on this, our planning and zoning commission?
Yes, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial 4-0.
Okay. So one of my concerns, and we have to, I guess what I'm trying to say here, and it's not really a question for you, it's a statement, is sometimes we see things different from staff. It doesn't necessarily mean a right or wrong. Staff looks at something from, oh, this will work for the city and this and that. My job is to represent people, and specifically the people in my ward. And I want to be careful how I say this. Sometimes you look at things a little differently when you've lived somewhere for a number of years and you have children and grandchildren here and you plan to stay. You're vested in the community and you care what it looks like 10 or 15 years down the road. So I'm not denying there's going to be growth. There's going to be growth, but one of my big concerns here is that a number of years ago, thousands of people over on our side of town had a real problem with the eastern bypass, and this was brought up during the planning and zoning meeting. So we have the northern bypass coming in that can get the trucks out of downtown and relieve some of the traffic, actually could relieve some of the traffic coming down that road. And let me say this for, in a sense, the other side. This road is going to be improved. It's not going to do this. Okay, it's going to be improved. It's going to be safer. And there are things you can do to slow traffic. Okay, so there are things that we call traffic calming, not speed humps. You put in boulevards, you make it less comfortable for trucks to go down. That's really important to a lot of us, is that semis aren't coming through there. But I feel like with putting, and I've heard this from planning and zoning, I've heard it from a lot of citizens, putting that leg, that extra road in that's going to connect directly with the northern bypass is going to make more people want to come that way. And unless they can stop the trucks are going to still like it. In a sense, it is completing the eastern bypass that we thought we killed some years ago. And so that's a big concern with a lot of us, is that leg of that road that's cutting through the property that you're talking about, that changed the whole dynamic and will actually encourage more traffic to come down that road, even without adding in all those townhouses.
All right. Anybody else? Mr. Montahan?
Yeah, I just had some, well, I guess, so Ron, I know we had talked earlier about this kind of site plan, but as I look at it further and further, I mean, I just see a lot of I have a lot of concerns about it that they provided. I mean, it just kind of has these generic labels called amenity. I see a bunch of basically T intersections in the townhome portion of it. I know that, our ordinance is going to require that they put some curvature in those roads. I've never seen so many T intersections in a layout in a long time. So I just kind of feel like this is kind of done haphazardly on this proposed site plan. And I mean, how long have we had this? 'Cause I know I don't believe it was available at the zoning meeting, right?
It wasn't. You're right. So this has come in since that time. I'd say maybe 2 weeks, a week, 2 weeks.
Okay. I just kind of feel like the applicant kind of knew what some of the concerns of the community were, and I don't know if they fairly addressed those concerns, even just from a presentation perspective. I mean, they have 115 lots on here, but like the mayor pointed out earlier, it doesn't even really denote what the size of these townhomes are.
Can you pull your mic a little closer?
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
Can barely hear you.
I apologize. So, yeah, like the site plan itself is just kind of lacking, and you know, for example, it's got a bunch of, in the residential part, it's got a bunch of basically T intersections, which I don't know if anybody designs roads that way, so I don't know how realistic that is. Again, we talked earlier about the fact that the elevations point out that this is going to have rear load, but the elevation also shows like front carports, not carports, but driveways, I guess. So it's just kind of ambiguous a little bit. We don't really understand what we're getting here. And I kind of, my leaning, and I'll just kind of tell this, is that I'm thinking about maybe we just table this to July to see if the applicant can provide some more better detail here about what they're proposing. Because this is kind of,
Let's keep in mind, this is a rezoning. So
right.
we're not getting into the detail.
And if we deny it, they have to wait an entire year. So I just kind of wanted to get an idea of, you know, maybe give them a second bite at the apple in July with a better presentation. That was my thought.
All right. Oh, I didn't even see you show up.
All
right. You want to be recognized?
Yes, can I?
Sure, go ahead.
So what I was going to say is, this is just the general concept.
Right.
When they actually submit their civils and their engineering, they're going to have to meet everything on the ordinance that goes through our city engineer and planning and zoning. This is just type concept, but they will have to meet all the regulations. And what we are looking for is the rezoning. But
Right.
So they were on a time crunch to get this to just kind of give us an overlay of what they're going to be bringing here, but they will
Sure.
have to submit all that.
Yeah, but I mean, we've seen better, even for a zoning concept plan, we've seen better presentations than this. I think that's my concern, is that I've seen presentations that actually kind of give me an idea of what's going to be out there. But we actually have, in this site plan, we actually have inconsistencies. So, for example, going back, the elevation said it's supposed to be rear load. However, there are no rear load. I mean, I guess you could say some of them are if they're facing the commercial. They don't look like rear load to me.
Right.
There are no alleyways. There are no carports. We don't know what the distance I know our zoning ordinance will kind of fill in some of these details, but it doesn't look like the zoning ordinance was even kind of in mind when they came up with this site plan, that if we're zoned, it would look something like this. Another thing is, I mean, also, this is a question I may have had for the applicant or the developer, is that would this townhome area be gated, or I know there's going to be a rental, but
Doesn't matter to us. I mean, we've tried to do what we was asked to do by the staff. You know, if it needs to be gated, we can gate it. And we, Tracy, I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago, and he said you like the rear load, and I agreed to that, but didn't have time to have the engineer redraw them with rear loads. You know, it's a stipulation, we'll have to go by it. I mean, that's what, like I said, we've been trying to work with the staff to get what we wanted, and we worked with the city engineers on that road. Hired Ray's office worked with that. So, been a lot of money spent and a lot of time and effort meeting with the staff and meeting with the engineers to try to do what we think y'all want us to do. And we don't want to have any desire to rent any apartments to anybody less than 55 years old. It's not a market we want. The younger people tear your houses up. They don't pay the rent. You all the time having to put them out. Senior citizens, they don't tear things up. They take care of their stuff. They'll pay their rent. That's what we want.
Sure, I understand that.
That's the whole reason for wanting it.
If you don't fill up with 55 and over, what are you gonna do then?
If we don't rent them like we think we'll rent them, we won't build all of them. I mean, we're tied into 55 and older. But our market study shows us that there's 55 and older people, enough of them out there to fill these apartments up. We don't think we have a problem. Of course, we're not going to build 100 of them at a time.
Sure.
We'll build 20 or 30 of them, and as we rent those, we'll start 20 or 30 more. Not going to go out there and start 100 houses without renting them.
These gonna be affordable rental houses.
Ma'am?
These gonna be affordable rentals.
No, ma'am, I don't know, we're gonna rent them for in the $1,600 to $1,800 a month range.
So market.
Market,
Market
whatever the
rent.
market price is. We're not, don't have any kind of government programs in line or anything like that. Just people 55 and older don't want to cut grass anymore, don't want to maintain. And you got to have some parking spaces in front for people that visit, but the rear load carports in the back, garbage pickup, utilities all be in the back. And we will get that redesigned, and we'll have to do it to meet whatever we agree on here. We have no problem with it, stipulate rear load.
Right.
And we'll design it that way.
And I would just remind everyone that if there is a 55 and up age-restricted zoning, he doesn't have the option to change that.
That's right.
At any time. He doesn't get to decide, oh, I couldn't fill it up with 55, so I'm going to go for whoever I can find.
And we didn't
That's
put
not
that
lawful.
stipulation in about it. If it wasn't TAS, we wouldn't be tied to that. We've never wanted to do anything but 55 and older.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that. But Mr. Mompton had that question because that's how it was written. But
Yes, sir, and I understand
I
that.
think we're clear on that now.
Okay.
All right. Do either of you want to be recognized?
The only thing I want to do is just to point out to the council in your discussion that you are limited on land use discussions to those standards that are set forth in our zoning ordinance. And our land use ordinance doesn't require an absolute final plan, because that is covered by the development regulations by and large. So the only point I'm making is that land use considerations do not encompass all the final plan.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Ms. McPherson.
And that's why it's so important, because, right, he could spend a fortune, getting all that up front and then get a no. What we're doing is the zoning, but that's why the zoning is so important. Because once you change it, a lot of different things can happen there as long as they fit certain criteria. And it may be different from what anybody expected. I feel for you, Mr. Dobbs, because I know you've worked a lot with staff and what staff may desire to see there and everything else. And it's a little different on our part because staff isn't talking to the citizens and the neighbors, right? So, and I know this, you're in a challenging position. I empathize with that. But it's really important to a lot of citizens on that side of town what happens with those roads and where they're going through to complete what we call the eastern bypass. And there is an issue with, I think, with the density and rentals.
All right.
Mayor, may
Mr.
I
Mompton.
ask, kind of like, I don't know who on staff would answer this question, but kind of discussing on that 9th condition, where it basically says that if this project is not part of the TAD essentially, or it's not included in the TAD, they don't have to do the construction for the realigned Punkintown Road. They don't have to do their age restriction, and they don't have to set aside the property for the county fire station. I mean, what is staff's viewpoint on why that condition is there? And I'm just curious what staff's viewpoint also is on, do we want to, if this is not part of the TAD, what's the staff's feeling about releasing all of those items versus just some of them or none of them?
If I can address that.
Sure.
So I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because I realized this last one here, Tom and I sat down or had some conversation in regards to these items, and this was prior, let me see. Tom did advise me, and as we heard earlier tonight regarding the TAD and what nodes would be actually in the TAD. So I did update the conditions, and that was the condition that changed, being that we knew at that point that, or it appeared that it would not be in the TAD. So I guess to answer your question, the changes that we had, I actually had it open just a moment ago.
Are you saying this area would not be in a tax allocation district? Is that what you're
That's
saying?
correct.
It's not what we did. Go ahead.
It's not. So the only change here, number 9 would be removed, and the last condition that we have, number 8. Let's see, just bear with me, please. Yeah. So those two actually would be removed in their entirety.
Are you
I just
saying
wanted to
8 and
confirm
9?
8 and 9, yes. I'm looking at my my revised cover sheet that I had that didn't make it here. Just bear with me, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure this is right.
So while you're doing
so 8 and 9 actually were removed from my newest cover sheet, being that it didn't apply at that point. Now that we know that the TAD is not covering this area, so
Okay. Well, I do wish you would have started with that earlier, because I
didn't notice that until he just said that.
So we want to strike 8 and 9 from this cover sheet. So let me remind everybody, earlier tonight, when we did the framework for the TAD, that TAD framework only includes nodes 1, 2, and 3. This, what we're talking about here, would have been node 5. That is not included as part of the TAD discussion. So this project is no longer inside of the TAD as it currently is before the council and the school board. I'm sorry if that wasn't
Can you tell people what that means?
clear earlier. In terms of what?
In terms that would be understandable, that there's not, now that this is not a tax allocation district, how does that impact what's going on there?
Well, it won't. The conditions that are related to the TAD, I think that I've heard people talk about the TAD all through the night like it's some new pieces of development. The TAD was simply just a geographic location where tax dollars would have been allocated to particular infrastructure. This particular money, if it doesn't come from TAD money, it's going to come out of his pocket, their pocket. That's the difference here. So they are aware that they are not going to be in this TAD at this stage, and that's why conditions 8 and 9 no longer apply to this application before us.
I say this, Stuart, we intend on building this before, whether there's gonna be a TAD there or not.
Yes, sir.
We didn't even know TAD was around.
Okay.
We started buying property.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna do, we're planning on going forward with or without.
So they didn't expect help with the infrastructure of the road, that sort of thing?
Well, without getting out into the weeds, I mean, one of the things that came along is we tried to work this TAD through the county and through the school system. There were elements of bringing that particular area into the TAD that we could get the fire station area for the county, and these gentlemen were going to donate that area because they were going to get some help on the infrastructure from the funding out of the TAD. Anyway, that's not part of this anymore, and they're aware of that. So that's where we're at. I mean, all of these are moving pieces. This stuff moves around because, things happen. We haven't been able to get that TAD secured. We didn't get it secured with the county, so the fire station part of that is no longer applicable.
That's right.
And at this point, the deal we have that we think we have with the school system does not include what would have been a node 5. It only includes 1, 2, and 3. All right. Anything else?
I think so. I think my question then for the applicant developer would be that would they still be committed to some of the fire station or the 55, the restricted, even if there's no TAD? I know they said the 55, I know they said that, but like the fire station, would they still be willing to provide that property absent a TAD?
To donate it to the city?
Yes, and I don't know or even the reconstruction of the road. I'm sorry? I don't know, I'm just asking. But again, that's kind of why I feel like
we're getting.
Again, that's kind of why I feel like maybe we should table this so we can get kind of more consideration of it.
It is getting to be hazardous to begin negotiating a contract rezoning, though.
We don't mind donating a piece for the fire station. We don't want to buy any more property to make that work. But
Would that be an acre?
acre,
Sir.
what were we looking at, Tom? Acre, acre and a half, something like that? Whatever it takes for the building they drew in, you know. We're not
Okay.
gonna give 3 acres or 2 acres, but.
Well,
you
I
know,
understand, but you said you didn't want to buy any more. I just simply want to get some idea. So
Yeah.
acre, acre and a half,
Yeah,
of something that already exists.
Something we already own, we don't have a problem
You
with
would give that to the city, and the city could use that for a fire department at some point in the future if it
Yes,
chose
sir.
to do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
All right. Anybody else have anything? All right. You have anything else?
No.
All right. Anybody else have anything? Okay. Would anybody like to be recognized for a motion?
Be,
Who?
say, before we take a motion, is there any consideration of the table? Because here's the thing, if they get a no, it's done for a year for them, right?
That's my understanding.
It's done for a year, correct? So that's precarious for them. It shuts them down. They cannot come back to us for a year if it's denied. So is there, and there's been an offer of possibly tabling. I don't know how the developer feels about tabling or, I mean, I hate to say gambling, but there's a risk with moving ahead.
What happens with the notice provisions, David, if an,
I'm sorry, what was the question?
what happens with the noticing provisions?
If it is simply tabled, then the notice is still valid. You don't have to have an additional public hearing on it because you've already had it. You can table it.
Is your mic on, David? I can barely hear you.
I can hear him.
I did not have it on, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, that's bad.
I
So-
think within the zoning ordinance, you do have the power to table it for further consideration. Generally, the tabling is only for a period of 30 days.
We won't meet
Because
for
we don't
2
have a
months.
June meeting, that's
Yeah.
a little bit worrisome.
Oh, okay. That's interesting consideration.
All right, because that pushes us all the way out to July. So,
I didn't realize there was a 30-day limitation on the tabling.
I'm not going to be quoted as saying it is a 30-day. It just concerns me that that may be a long time.
I'm prepared to
It
make a
just has to be
motion.
announced verbally.
I'm sorry?
It just has to be announced at the previous meeting
Yeah.
what the new date is.
Right, so I think you can table it. I think you can set it off to the July meeting. I'm just a little troubled that that's a long period of time to table something. And the reasons being that we're not going to have another public hearing on it. And people will, over a period of 60 days, just be concerned that you've forgotten everything that's been said.
I mean.
I'm
you wanna
prepared to make a
propose that?
motion
Do
if you want a
to make
motion.
A motion
Yeah,
to table it?
it's
I'll let Councilwoman McPherson lead on the motion. I'll defer to her. It's her ward.
I move to deny the rezoning request for Arpit Realty LLC for a rezoning from AG to CI with SFA with the conditions as outlined by staff.
All right, I have a motion from Ms. McPherson to deny the rezoning request. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Have a second. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question about kind of the procedural posture right here. So if this motion passes, obviously it's denied. If this motion fails, this is an item that has to have an action. It doesn't, right? So there actually has to be either an approval, a denial, or a table tonight. That's my understanding. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
All right, is that it? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? That motion will fail. All right, is there another motion to be made? Mr. Carter?
I move to approve the rezoning request from Arp Realty LLC for rezoning from AG to CI and SFA with conditions 1 through 7 as outlined by staff.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Carter to approve the rezoning request from Arpit Realty. Do I have a second? All right, if there is no second, that motion will die for a lack of a second.
I make a motion to table RA 01-23 to the July meeting.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Montahan to table this item to the July regular session meeting. Is there a second? All right, if there is no second, that motion will die.
Shirley seconded.
I said I second.
I heard you. All right, I have a motion from Mr. Montahan to table this item to the July regular meeting. I have a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All opposed? That motion will pass. This item will be tabled to the July regular meeting. All right. I want to give these folks an opportunity to get out of here. I would remind everybody that these mics are still on, these cameras are still recording and broadcasting. Item 7, RA-04-23, 974 Dallas Highway rezoning from single-family agricultural AG to commercial low density. This item has a public hearing. Ron.
Amin Damani seeks a rezoning at 974 Dallas Highway from single-family agricultural to C1, commercial low density. They're looking to build a convenience store and a gasoline service station. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 3-1 to approve the application with a condition that there's interparcel connectivity on both sides of the parcel to adjacent parcels. And staff has recommended denial as well, for it, of course, not being the highest and best use being a gas station, essentially. So the applicant is here tonight to give comments on his application and support it.
All right. Council, do you have any questions for Ron?
Yes.
All right, Ms. McPherson.
Ron, other than highest and best use, is there any part of the denial that's related to how the traffic's going to move in and out of that gas station on the Dallas Highway?
As far as our reasoning for approval or denial, it wasn't 100% factored in, but we did factor in the fact that we already had some interconnectivity with the Dollar General parcel, so we added that as well into consideration and as a requirement for it, as a potential condition if this was to be approved.
Yeah, and that made sense. So they could get to the Dollar General and get to Harrell, and it's subbed on the other side too, so if something
That's what the
comes over.
Planning Commission recommended.
All right, anybody else?
Ron, what about the traffic flow ingress, egress off 61? What about considerations there? Were there any considerations involving that?
Just generally, it's just like we would look at, just like for most, if not all of our sites, just to ensure that we have some sort of entrance and exit. We also had another service station on this agenda as well, where we did the exact same exercise where we were looking at entrance and exit, but it's not really possible for me to know as a planner. They would really need to go through the engineering process in order to know what's considered safe, what's not considered safe. And I know we had some conversation earlier, and I was able to reach out to the city's engineer to get his take on it, and his comments were duplicate of the last service station that we heard, where he cannot confirm access, being that GDOT's rules have been changing as of late. He can't confirm if there's access that would be cut off, being that it is a residential driveway that's there. GDOT's previous rules I don't know if it's the same anymore. But if it was a residential driveway, they would have obviously require it to be up to conformance with a commercial standard driveway entrance as far as width and location, etc. Bobby mentioned to me that it's never a guarantee unless it's actually in writing from GDOT, that location of it, and if site distance, for example, would need to be looked into, and various other things. So it's, in his words, it's very hard to tell unless you are actually in the room with GDOT at this point.
All right. Yes, Ms. McPherson.
So Ron, as far as traffic, and I don't know how much, I know I watched planning and zoning meeting, but say you're coming up from Tanner. Okay, so you're coming up from Tanner, going north on Dallas Highway, and you're about to hit the roundabout. You may not know that the best way to get to this gas station, if it were there, would be to turn on Harrell and go behind Dollar General. So you keep going straight, you go through the roundabout, because you see the gas station. Now, you've got to make a left across the traffic coming south on Dallas Highway, approaching the roundabout. Has anybody talked about that? Because gas station in and out, I mean, there's a lot of in and out. Has anybody talked about how that's going to happen? Because if that car stops there, everything backs up into the roundabout.
Right.
Is anybody talking about
unfortunately,
that?
I haven't had any conversations to that nature in regards to the traffic.
That's my primary concern, is just how traffic gets in and out.
So this is gonna be between Dollar General and Pearl Road. Am I right?
Well, Dollar General is actually on the corner of Pearl Road. It will be on the opposite side of the Dollar General.
Oh, okay, where that house is.
Yes, yeah, there's a house there now.
Pull your mic on a little bit. All right, anybody else? All right, Ms. McCoy.
So staff recommended denial because you said it wasn't the best possible use for that parcel? Or what was your wording? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, the use is not highest and best use for the land compared to other permitted uses.
Wouldn't that kind of fall under what Councilwoman McPherson was saying? That maybe because it's hard to get in and out, this might not be, instead of having to get in the weeds and have to look at traffic, that maybe that could be it?
I'm not sure if I 100% understand your question, but I think what you're saying is if it was a higher use than what's being proposed today, is that what you're saying?
Sort of. I alluded to this in the work session, that my concern is I don't think that that's the appropriate place for a gas station right now. I think if it were something else, like Councilwoman McPherson said, with less traffic, or not exactly by the roundabout where it's going to be tricky to get in and out, then if it were, and then also too, I mean, we do get lots of complaints that we have so many Dollar Generals and we're going to put a gas station next to it. I mean, that's my 2 cents, is that it's not, yeah, it's not the greatest of locations for a gas station.
No response. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Seeing none, I will, is the applicant present? Is that the person standing up
Yes,
in the
sir.
back?
Yes, he is here.
All right, come on up here. Give us your name and address for the record. And
Hi,
present your case.
Absolutely. My name is Jonathan Telenis with HRC Engineers at 6554 Church Street, representing Amin Damani for this rezoning application. So regarding the access onto onto Highway 61, there is sorry, when we put that driveway in that location, trying to balance it between the current roundabout at Punkintown and that future roundabout from the northern bypass to equally space that so that you're minimizing disruption. The current residential driveway comes really close to that roundabout at Punkintown. So we wanted to try and push it further away to give more space for people not to be coming straight out of the roundabout and turning in, or trying to turn in straight off the roundabout. And as you mentioned, you know, if you're coming down the road, you may not know, hey, this is the best way to get here is by going through Dollar General's parking lot. But I don't know that we can put a sign there saying, hey, to get to the gas station, go this way. Dollar General may not appreciate that being on the corner right there. But this is our proposed convenience store over here on Highway 61 with the gas pump. And as discussed at the planning and zoning, we're willing to accept the conditions of interconnectivity with the Dollar General parcel and the adjacent parcel on the other side, which as of yet is just currently zoned ag, for potential future development or whatever may end up being there, or even if they just want to put their driveway through there, I guess.
You say you want to balance the entrance between the two roundabouts, but I don't see how there's a balance on 61. So you say you will accept the inter-parcel connectivity, but are you willing to not have entrance and exit on 61?
I believe we would like to keep the access on Highway 61.
Because that's the most troubling part for me.
Okay.
It is, and yet people got to get into the gas station.
Yeah, yeah.
It's,
well,
it's
you
a
know, if we don't
difficult
have
area.
access onto Highway 61 and they don't see to get there through the Dollar General, how is anybody going to know how to get into the gas station in the first place?
Yeah, that may go back to the question about the location.
Sure. Well, one thing that does work in our favor is the interparcel access with the Dollar General is in the front, not behind the Dollar General. So that does mean rather than having to look behind it for that rear access, yeah, rather than having to look behind it, you'll see that access running parallel to Dallas Highway. It's about where I've got, or where on this plan the 10-foot building line is labeled on that top left corner.
So are you saying they're driving, if they were to leave the gas station and go on the Dollar General property, they would be on that front parking lot area?
Correct.
So they'd go across the front, then they have to go like this and then get out on here?
Correct.
That's a roundabout way. Okay. I didn't realize it went right across the parking area in the front. Of course, they have no access on the front, but I see that it makes sense. It's a little easier to see how you get into side of theirs.
Right.
Okay.
They don't have access to the front for a reason, because they couldn't get that.
They'd be in the roundabout.
But
Can
they
I?
couldn't get it here. They came here and asked for it.
But they have the option of that side entrance onto a road.
And you do too. Through the parcel.
How
All
far?
right, anybody else?
How far did you move it from where the driveway is?
So I believe currently the driveway is on that far top side of the plan. It's very close to that side property line. So we've shifted it over about 50 feet.
Okay.
Okay, I need to do a public hearing. Do you have anything else you want to add before I do that?
I don't believe so. No, sir.
All right. Okay, is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this rezoning? All right, seeing nobody, I will close the public hearing. I'll revert back to staff. Ron, come back up. Council, do you have any questions for staff? All right. Is there anybody who would like to be recognized for a motion? Mr. Carter.
I move to deny the rezoning request from Amid Dami, I don't know how to say that, for rezoning from AG to CI.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Carter to deny the rezoning request from Amin Diamani for a rezoning from AG to CI. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. McPherson. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? That motion will carry unanimously. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
That takes me to the city manager's report, and I know you've been working on that all day, but can you do that, and maybe this is just 9:13 is pretty late. Will you remind me, if you can, what this D1 is?
I cannot remind you of that because I did not know what it was either.
We don't need it? All right, good. Okay, because I didn't remember it myself. Okay, so we have reached the end of our agenda. And I think I have had about all I can take for one evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Marchman to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Carter. All in favor?